This is the Danger Close podcast, Beyond the Books with me, Jack Carr. Welcome to the Danger Close podcast, an Ironclad original presented by Navy Federal Credit Union. My guest today is former Navy SEAL Remi Adeleke. From Nigeria to the Bronx to the SEAL teams to Hollywood, actor, director, writer. This is his book right here called Transformed, a Navy SEAL's unlikely journey from the throne of Africa to the streets of the Bronx to defying all odds. He has a lot going on, as you'll find out in this podcast, and has a film, The Unexpected, which is out on September 30th on his YouTube channel that deals with human trafficking. And now, without further ado, Remi Adeleke. Remi, are you there? Oh, man, there you are. Awesome. Oh, man. Sorry, I think we sent you the wrong link or something like that. Sorry about that. I was going through my direct messages. I'm like, well, maybe something came up. And
I ain't gonna do my boy like that.
You got a lot going on. I would totally understand because you have 1,000 things going on, which are all amazing.
Thank you, brother. I logged in early because my computer, I'm past due for a new computer, man. You know how it is as a writer. So when I click on the Zoom link, it takes like 5 minutes for everything to get squared away. So I logged in like at 8 minutes before.
Nice. Yeah, that's what I do now. I buy a new computer, 2 every year, one for the business side, and then one that's not even connected. Well, it's connected to the internet just so the Word can update, but otherwise nothing else, just for writing. So just minimize some of those distractions. I need to put, what is it called? Is it called Final Draft? Is that what you're writing in?
Yeah, that's what I write in. I write in Final Draft, man.
Nice. Now everybody's sending me things in Final Draft, so I just got it. So I need to work with it a little bit more. But yeah, now that's the way. Every book gets its own computer that is separate, and then I just take it and stack it, and that's just how it's got to be. There's too many distractions these days, and a lot of them are necessary, as you know.
But hey, that's a good thing, though, brother. It's a good thing to have so much going on that you got to kind of compartmentalize it that way.
Yeah, no, exactly. I don't even know where to start with you because I was so bummed we didn't get to meet up on set when you came out and did the terminal list, and you're on the HRT, of course, in the terminal list. Awesome. So thank you for taking the time to do that. I really appreciate it. Oh man, too cool. But you have so much going on. So I definitely want to talk about the book. I mean, the story is incredible, and I hope someone makes it into something someday because it's so unique. The journey is so unique and inspirational. So I love that. You have SAS Who Dares Wins, and I think it's coming to this country under a different name. Is that
coming to America, man? Just like Eddie Murphy, we coming to America,
nice. Baby. I mean, it's such a worldwide hit. I'm surprised it took so long to get it here.
I know. Minnow's been trying to get it in the U.S. since I want to say season 2, so about 5 years ago, and none of the networks, took a bite at it, and then finally Fox did, because they changed the format and added 2 Americans to the British version, and I guess Fox saw that and they were like, "Oh, that's the way we can."
Okay. I see.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I want to talk to you about that, what that experience was like, and then the film, man. It is awesome. Thank you for sending it. It is because I was like, oh, it'll be good. It'll be fine. And then I started watching it and I was glued. And, we talked a little bit about the human trafficking stuff, but the way you do it, and then you do it non-linear, so it's going backwards. And it's just like, that was impressive. I mean, it is amazing. You did such a good job with it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I had to find a way and I'm sure we'll get into further detail later, but I had to find a way to make it as palatable as possible because if I told a story in a very linear fashion, then you lose the audience. You gotta have the person, and I say that in the air quotes, be alive at the end. Kind of like Memento. Christopher Nolan is I have 3 favorite directors and 2 of them are writer directors, Christopher Nolan, Denis Villeneuve, and Quentin Tarantino. Okay. And so I kind of stole from Christopher Nolan on the whole Memento piece.
No, I love it, man. I love it. And it's, I was going to guess Tarantino because non-linear format that he's used a couple times, obviously. But man, it was awesome. And you got Justin Garza in there crushing.
Yeah, you got terminalist, brother.
Yeah, bringing the team back together.
And then Gonzo, the EMT, he was a SEAL. You put him, he was a SEAL as well. So he jumped on board. Great dude. He was an East Coast guy.
I'm gonna go back and watch it again. I didn't recognize him, so but now I will now because I know him from the East Coast. But now I'm gonna go back and watch it with that eye. Man, I did not recognize him in there. That is awesome, man, and such a cool. I want to talk all about it. I want to go to the book probably first, but I gotta say that heart trance, the like cutting open and pulling it out. I mean, that was serious. I mean, I've hunted a lot and, pulled a couple hearts out here and there. And that what you guys did, that was legit.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. It took a lot of coordination trying to find the right props and way to make it work and seem realistic,
Did.
So that I was going for because, and we'll get into it later, but human trafficking, I've studied this thing to know. And also my heart blew up. No pun intended, when you told me that your next book is going to be human trafficking, because I was like, bro, I got so much intel to share.
I know. I was seriously, right before you reached out, 2 days, I think it was before, I wrote down something about organ transplants and a future book. So it's not the next one. It's like the next one or the next one. But anyway, it's in there, but it's right there on a yellow sticky right in front of my computer. So it's front of mind because it's so crazy. I mean, people think of human trafficking and you think, some other reasons, but you don't necessarily jump right to organs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a subset. It's something that's overlooked and it's something that's not often talked about because frankly, a lot of people don't believe it.
Yeah.
They don't believe it, but there's so much information out there about actual organ trafficking campaigns, operations that have happened that have been busted. And again, I know we're going to get to it later, but I got some stuff that's going to make people be like, damn, but it's sad. Somebody has to, and the reason why I made the film was because I needed to expose the darkness, back it up a little bit. I wrote it as a TV treatment at first, and my agent pitched around town, and everybody was like, it's too dark. Nobody wants to watch it. Pandemic. Nobody wants to watch it. So I said, you know what? Somebody's got to. So I flipped the bill and made the film, and that's the goal, is to kind of show people that this thing actually happens.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Where did you first start? Learning about or becoming interested in human trafficking and then the organ side of it?
Yeah. So when I got out of the teens of 2016, I worked in a few different nonprofit capacities, like partnerships. So I went to prison. I did prisons. I went to inner city schools, like in some of the worst neighborhoods in the country, and just sharing my story and volunteering in different ways. And another thing I did was I volunteered with a few different human trafficking organizations. And one of them being Operation Underground Railroad, which is based out in Utah. And, I remember going down to the Dominican Republic and Haiti with them, and bro, my eyes were freaking open. It's like a whole nother world that, so many people don't know exists. And, as a father, I was just like, like my heart just dropped, seeing what I saw and hearing the stories. And fast forward, I was actually, as soon as I landed back in the States from that trip, my phone, I had all of these voicemails from Michael Bay's producing partner, Mike Case. And he's like, Remi, where have you been? Like, we've been trying to get in contact with you because we want you to consult on Six Underground, the Netflix movie, Six Underground. And I was like, bro, I was just in DR working with OUR because, they employ a lot of former spec ops guys. He was like, really? I was like, yeah, man, it was crazy down there. So I say all that to say that it was a blessing that it happened back to back like that on that particular trip, because that's when the idea came to me, like, okay, how can I have a bigger effect? You can go rescue 2 kids, but there's going to be 1,000 more kids that need to be rescued. Mm-hmm. Film and TV. Everybody watches films. Everybody watches TV. Most people probably won't read articles, but they'll watch a movie or they'll watch something. And so I just thought about it like a psyops operation, when we're overseas and we're working with the psyops and winning the hearts and minds. I figured, let me try and tell a story that will penetrate the hearts and minds and galvanize the masses to get into this fight, but most importantly, like, educate them of the reality of this world. Yeah. And so that's how it all kind of came together and started. And, I give credit to OUR for allowing me to work with them for the time that I did. And then also Michael Bay for kind of, and Bay Films for kind of helping inspire me through that kind of time period of everything happening.
Amazing, man. I love the Michael Bay connection in the book where you see Bad Boys, which was awesome, by the way. And then The Rock also, huge fan of all his stuff, but I love that how it comes full circle at the end. You guys end up working together then, but I mean, that's so, I mean, I don't know how many times those people that are in those positions think about how much of an impact that their films have on people. Maybe they I don't know if they think about it generally, but then they're so busy, or do they really think, hey, this thing is going to inspire some kid to become a SEAL or to become a police officer or whatever it is? Do they, I'm always fascinated by how much time they spend thinking about that, or if it's just like, generally this might inspire some people to become these other things. And what's my next project, but it's amazing. But now, I mean, he's met a few different SEALs and he's worked with SEALs a few times. So I wonder how much it clicks as far as how much his work has inspired people to do the things that they're actually watching on these films.
Well, I wrote a letter to him after I worked on Transformers with him, and to do that, and he still has that letter posted on his website, and it's been framed and put in his office. And I just told him how story has the power to change lives and save lives, and that. I mean, you're a storyteller, you're a writer, you're a producer, you get that full fledged, and so I really wanted him to know that through his storytelling. You know what I mean? And obviously the writers, I always got to give credit to their screenwriters, because screenwriters don't get credit. Directors always get all the credit. But the screenwriters for penning those stories, and Michael Bay for breathing life into those stories, because that changed the trajectory of my life. Yeah. And I would not have had the path. And I'm sure we'll jump into my story, but I was going down a completely different path. Mm-hmm. And story changed the trajectory of my life. And I know that that's what you're doing. You're changing a lot of lives through the books you're writing. I see people I come across people who so many terminalists. He was like, I found Jack Corbin. This book's awesome. Inspired me. I want to do this or that. I'm like, yeah, that's my book. But that's what story does.
It does. Yeah, it is. So, I mean, and all around the world, Hollywood, I think, used to be our most powerful export for in a positive sense. People around the world, let's say in the mid 50s, mid 60s, somewhere, and they're seeing this in let's say they're in the Philippines and they're watching this and they're like, wow, I can go to America and I can do this. And, it inspires so many people around the world. And it's interesting. There's like a shift, I think, somewhere, I don't know, late 90s maybe, where a lot of movies, instead of pointing out some of those more inspirational parts of our past, delve into some of the more negative. And I'm wondering how that's perceived. I mean, people are still want to come land of opportunity, but maybe that's because, of all the other places, like we're all that's left. But I wonder if it's how that's impacted why people want to come here. I don't know. It's just something that, I think
100%. I mean, I was, born in Nigeria, dude. And I get messages every week from Nigerians, people from Congo, people from Benin, you name it. I get messages. Hey, I want to come to America. My dream has been to come to America. I watch all of the movies. All of them, this is the crazy thing, all of them want to join the military.
Interesting.
They all say, I want to be a Marine, or I want to be in the Navy, or be a SEAL, or be something. And you ask how they find out about this. One, in part, they watch all of the movies. Yeah. They watch one dude, he'll be like, yeah, I watch Black Hawk Down, and man, I'm from this part of Africa and I want to come to the States so I can fight with Americans. And so a story, and then obviously they hear my story at times, and then, coming from Africa and then coming to joining the Navy, and they're like, if you could do it, I could do it, Yeah. So I think we still have that power, and, much credit to you and the filmmakers, Antoine and Chris, for what you did with Terminalist, because, you brought that back. You guys brought that back. You brought back that authentic, gritty, great character. And, we're not going to focus on frivolous things. We're just going to tell a hardcore, great story in a way that's palatable to a mainstream audience. And that's something that's been missing for a long period of time. And that's why I go back to, I truly believe that it has, and I know that it has, like, your books and along with the show has inspired and motivated a lot of people. And it getting exported outside of the U.S., people just getting hoping, I want to go there. I want to be gritty. I want to be after it. It's
so wild. So, because the first book, Terminalist, came out in 2018. So that means if someone was 15, 16, 17, 18, and they read it, they could be a few years into their military career by now. And I've had people this last book tour in particular, because the last two before that was COVID and there weren't book tours. But this last one, people came up and said, hey, they joined the military because they read the book. And I thought, that's a possibility. People would do that. And, but I talked to David Morrell, who created the character Rambo back in 1972 with First Blood. And, I've asked him about that as well, because he's done USO tours over the years. And people would tell him, hey, I joined the military because I saw the movie First Blood, Rambo 3. At this point, Rambo 4, and maybe in 5, but he has to think about that, or he goes to the hospitals and he sees these people that are, missing arms and legs, or dealing with traumatic brain injury or TBI, or PTSD type stuff. And he has to listen to them say, hey, I did this because of you, but they take it in a positive way. And they say they wouldn't have changed anything. Like, exactly. Which is amazing. And to him, I mean, obviously that character, iconic. It's right up there, I think, in the of 20th century characters. It's next to like Sherlock Holmes, Tarzan. There's a few out there now, probably Bourne, like those that are just all over the world. The most recognizable names, James Bond, of course, most recognizable names from books that make it to film. And it's, gosh, that's, if you're in the public figure and you are inspiring people to do things like join law enforcement or become an EMT or a firefighter or the military or whatever it might be, and bad things happen, that's, I don't know. It's tough, but it's a part of it. It's a part of it.
Part of the cycle. And it's no better way to go than to go doing what you love. Yeah. And doing what has gotten you up in the morning, and so, I think it's an honor to even be a part of that journey when people say, if they're injured or they pass away, their parents say, matter of fact, I'm going to a funeral tomorrow and for a kid, 21 years old. And his mom told me, I went to the hospital when he was on life support, pretty much he was brain dead. This was about 2 weeks ago. And his mom said, my son never reads books. And his dad came up to me. His dad was served at Gandak as a tech. And his dad came up to me and said the same thing because they're divorced. And he said, my kid never reads books. Both of them said, but they read your book. My son never reads books, but he read your book. And it inspired him and it did something to him. And, going back to what you said, it's like, you never know how what you're going to do is going to affect that person's life, but also affect that person's life before they pass on to the other side. Yeah. And that's the kicker,
Man, that is wild. What happened to him?
Yeah, it was a car accident, man. It was a car accident here in San Diego, unfortunate. It's he wasn't drinking, he wasn't texting, none of that stuff. It was just, dark area, turned, didn't hit another car, hit a pole. And somebody, I think it took 30 minutes for a car to come by because it was really late at night and saw him. And he was put on life support. And the blessing is, and I'm sure his parents would appreciate me saying his name, Peyton Nurse. The blessing is his organs, which is so interesting because I had this conversation with his mom about the film around, when I was at the hospital, but his organs saved the lives of, I'm going to say 5 people. His heart, lungs, and both his kidneys. And I think another organ. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Man, incredible. Your story though, dang, it's crazy. Like this, in this book right here, I made some notes in it, but, insanity. Take us through the first part of it. Like Nigeria, you're there, your family has history. And, it sounds like you're growing up in a pretty, that's what an interesting family to be born into.
Yeah, rich family. And my story starts with my dad. My grandfather. My grandfather had like 7 or 9 wives, something crazy. And he kept on having daughters. And my grandfather was a chief in the Yoruba tribe. So in Western culture, we refer to royalty as king, queen, prince, princess, duchess. By the way, we send our condolences to the royal family for their loss of the queen. Well, in Western culture, we refer to royalty as king, queen, prince, princess, duchess, that sort of thing. Lord, in Nigerian culture and a lot of West African culture and African culture in general, royalty is referred to as chief. So my grandfather was a chief in the Yoruba tribe. So he was like a king. Wow. And Yoruba tribe, and he was trying to get an heir. And so his wives kept on producing daughters, and then my father came along. My father was the firstborn son. So he just naturally inherited the title of king, and then along with our last name, which Adeleke, Ade means crown, and Leke means above. And so it's like crown is supreme in Yoruba. And my name actually, Ade Remi, my full name is actually Ade Remi. The crown has appeased me, so Remi has appeased me. And so my dad inherited the title of chief, and he also inherited, obviously, the last name. And his father, my grandfather, died when my dad was about 8 years old. So my grandmother, all the lives spread out, and my grandmother went down to the south of Nigeria, like near Lagos. And at the time, they were Christian missionaries that came to Africa, and that were not only teaching the Bible, but they were teaching science and math and literature, a lot of Western topics that are taught in school. And so my dad, he was a savant. He had memorized the Quran because my grandfather was Muslim. So he had already memorized the Quran by the time he was 8 years old. But he memorized the Bible, and then he memorized, he was able to memorize. He was a savant. He was just a genius, so much so that he ended up getting a full-ride scholarship to study engineering and architecture in London. And so by the time he came of age to go to college, and so he went to college early, got his bachelor's and master's degree, and then he just started building his businesses and his wealth and his name in the West. He was actually one of the first Black men on the board of the British Financial Planning Council of Great Britain. He was one of the first Black men on the board of the World Trade Center. His best friend was the architect of the World Trade Center. So when it came down, it was that connection that I had. There's a Japanese guy, I can't recall his name. Wow. And after he built all of this success and greatness, all of these things in the West, his focus was home. His focus was Nigeria, because he believed that Nigeria can be like the United States. It can be like the UK and these great nations because of the resources, the natural resources Nigeria has: cocoa, natural gas, oil in abundance, and gold, and just other resources that the soil just produces. And so he went back to Nigeria and started a few businesses there. One of his main goals was to create a business sector, somewhat of a Wall Street. So he bought a plot of land in the 70s called Marico. And if I'm being long-winded, please feel free.
No, I love it.
He bought a plot of land called Marico. There was a coup, and the military took over the government, and that land was pretty much taken from him. And that was where he was going to build his Wall Street. Fast forward to the 80s. The government was reestablished, back to a democracy. Military coup was kind of suppressed, and my dad went to court. And when he went to court, the Nigerian federal government said to him, "What do you want? Because we recognize that you did purchase. He purchased that land for 10 million pounds, back in the 70s. So what do you want that's equivalent to that? Would you like your money back? Would you like another piece of land? What do you want?" And there was a lagoon off of the coast of Lagos. And my dad said, "I want the lagoon." and the government was like, "What are you going to do with the lagoon?" Because it was a swamp. It was just think of a trash-filled swamp. When I was in Nigeria, right, I wrote the last part of my book in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And you'll see these islands that are just trash islands and kids running around naked when I was there. And so my dad said, I don't care, I want that. And he was a visionary. So in his mind, what he was thinking is, if I buy something where there was never something, no one could ever come back and say it was theirs. No government, no military coup, no one could ever do that. And so they gave him the swamp, the lagoon, and he hired Dutch engineers, started dredging the foreshore, which in order to create a man-made island. And my dad was one of the first, I'm not going to say the first, but he was one of the first guys that came up with the concept of dredging the foreshore and creating a man-made island. Heathrow Airport is a part of it is a man-made island. You have the Palm Islands in Dubai. Those are man-made islands where the foreshore is dredged. So he did that, and he developed what it was called the Lagoon Development Project. It's now known as Banana Island. The island still exists. And he started doing construction on the island. He signed deals with Marks and Spence, Disney, to have offices, McDonald's. I mean, this was supposed to be a big business. And so just think, like almost like Hollywood and a lot of films and stuff are done in Hollywood and the film industry. He wanted everybody to be able, when they wanted to do business in Africa, come to Nigeria, come to this business sector, this financial sector. And right after he signed the contracts and the land had fully formed, the Lagos state government came in and said, well, I'll back up for a second. So before all of this happens, when I came into the picture.
Yeah.
So before that, when I came into the picture, my mom, I tell people all the time that my mom and my dad's story is a real coming to America story. It's because my dad, he was a Nigerian prince. And my mom, she's a New Yorker, born and raised in New York City. She goes to the Metropolitan Museum of Natural History one day. They meet. He charms her, tells her he's this chief. She's like, yeah, whatever, get away from me. And they end up falling in love and get married 5 months later. And then my mom moves to Nigeria. So my brother was born around this time when my dad was developing Lagoon Development Project. And then a year later, I was born. So when I was born into wealth and riches. I mean, we traveled the world. We had nannies. We had cars. We had drivers. I mean, I have pictures of me and my brother on horses. We didn't live in a house. We lived on a compound right on Victoria Island, which is like the Beverly Hills or Coronado of Lagos. I mean, fur coats, private schools. I mean, my dad would host lavish parties. I remember years after my father died, I found a letter from Ronald Reagan in this desk that Ronald Reagan himself had written to my dad, because he would host these parties and have all of these people from all these different expats and all these people from different backgrounds at these parties. He was just a very well-connected man and charming man, with this British accent, and I say that to say that was the beginnings of my life. That was all I knew. And then fast forward to, after the contracts and everything went through with the island, and it was pretty much developed. The land was developed and construction had begun. The Lagos state government came in and said that the federal government was never supposed to award you that land. And my dad was like, well, it wasn't any land. It was a swamp. And he said, well, it belongs to us. That's the foreshore. And they kind of came up with some loophole. But the interesting thing is, and this speaks to the corruption of Nigeria. There's corruption in almost every government, but Nigeria has been a very ostensibly corrupt country. I mean, for a long period of time, even to this day, it's very well known. A lot of people go into politics in Nigeria, like here in the States, people want to be athletes or musicians, or that's their way to riches. In Nigeria, a lot of people, the thing is to get into politics, become a governor or become, a senator, because you get people that go into politics poor and they come out billionaires. Yeah. With a billionaires, right? Yeah. And their district, and when they receive money from the government to build better schools or equip their military, only a portion of that money goes to equipping the school or the military, and the majority of it goes into the pocket of politicians. So the Nigerian government, Lagos state government waited till my dad did all the work, and then they hit him with this claim. And the federal government, instead of jumping in and advocating for my dad, they just walked away. And my dad went to court, and because all of his money and finances was wrapped up in this thing. My mother, being a wise American woman, she would tell my dad all the time, put money in the US. Let's buy a house in the US. I don't trust the Nigerian system. And if something happens here, we're not going to have anything. And my dad was so loyal to his country that wasn't loyal to him, that he would tell my mom, my priority is my country. Once I get everything established and set up, we can buy all the houses and put all the money in the US. But right now, this is my priority. He was a very, and I don't want to use the word single-minded because that can come off disrespectful, but he was a very focused man. When there was something that he wanted to accomplish, nothing was going to stop him or distract him from accomplishing it. And so, but that was also his downfall because, as my mom predicted, because all of his wealth was wrapped up in the Lagoon Development Project. I mean, he had sold his art. I mean, some of the things I won't go down the line, but we lost everything. And he died days later, a few weeks later, very mysterious. He was stressed out about everything was going on, and he went for a walk and got bit by a dog, contracted rabies, went to the hospital to get some medication. And there's a lot of craziness around it. I won't go down to details, but he was given a bad medication. So he was essentially poisoned. And he took the medication and went to go take a bath. And the last person that saw him alive was a mate, and he died. Yeah. And that was my beginnings.
Dude, that's insanity. So do you think, there was something more nefarious besides just getting the wrong medication?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of people did not like my father. A lot of people did not like my father. Not even, I'm not even talking about as it related to the island. A lot of people didn't like my father before that. But then when he started doing what he was doing and he started getting all of this money and headwinds and everything was developing, and he was getting this power that he created in and of itself. Nobody gave it to him. Mm-hmm. People saw that as a threat. And then, with Lagoon Development Project, that island is worth billions of dollars. As a matter of fact, the Lagos state government offered my half brother $10 million 2 years ago for the island to walk away from the case. And my brother was like, no, it's worth billions of dollars. Why would I take $10 million? And so, it was very, very, very wealthy. And to this day, my father's our security guard, our family's security guard, who we believe betrayed us as well, is the custodian of the island, of Banana Island. So they call him the Abba. He drives around in this Jeep, and he's like the guy who he doesn't own it, but he's the guy who's kind of like, kind of in charge of the island for the Lagos state government. So
that's crazy. And so when you go back, and you describe at the end of the book, and you're saying, hey, what are the odds of me being able to get this back or something? Whoever you're talking to is like about 0% or whatever they say. But how crazy is that to go back there and see that and just know how much of your family history and really the path that you were set on is wrapped up in that? Like, how crazy is that? Just go back and see that.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I know this might sound crazier. I'm grateful that things happen the way they happen. Because I would not be the man I am today. If I have had, my dad was married 10 years before he met my mom. And so I have about 3 half siblings. And I'm gonna tell you, they all went to boarding school in the UK, and they're doing it. They still live in London, and they didn't want to have anything to do with me and my brother. To this day, I only have one of the siblings who's had contact with me and my brother, John. He's in the book as well. But the other 2 hated my mom, and they despised my brother and I. But they're completely different people, very posh, very, everything was kind of handed to them, and because they were around their adult life, they grew up with the riches. They went to boarding school. Their college was paid for. They had all my dad's connections to get great jobs. I have one brother who's an accountant. I have another sister. Well, she's somewhat, she got out of jail recently in the UK. It was a big story a few years ago. But they all lived a completely different life. And I guarantee that if my dad didn't die, I would not be the man I am today. So I know that might sound crazy, but I'm kind of happy the way things turned out.
Wow. And when he passed away, were you guys in Africa or in New York at that?
We were a little bit in between. So we had just left for Africa. We had just left Africa for the US. For like a small little holiday, me and my brother and my mother, and my dad had flown to the States. So he got bit by the dog, got the medication, didn't take the medication, flew to Germany, did a meeting up there, flew to New York, saw my brother and I, then flew back to Nigeria. We were supposed to fly back to Nigeria to be back with them and for school and all that stuff. And then that's when he took the medication finally and, died. But yeah.
Man, did you go back for funeral and that stuff, or did you guys stay in the States?
No, yeah. My mother, she didn't want my brother and I to go, and my mom's a very wise woman, and I think it was for our benefit. I'll never forget the day she told my brother and I that our dad died. She put my brother on one side of this red couch and me on the other side, and she just said, "Hey, your dad has passed and he's not coming back." And she said it in such a very calm way that we didn't understand. We didn't get it. Like, it was just like, okay, we're going to go back to playing, because we didn't understand death. We were too young. And then she had kept it together in such a great way that we didn't think anything was wrong. And so, my mom did a really, really good job of masking the reality of what had happened. And
dude, wild.
Protection was not having us go to the funeral to see our dad,
Man,
so.
I mean, that's what we talk about, Nigerian born, Bronx raised. And so now your formative years kind of start here. You're still young, but you're now it's Bronx the whole time. Is it the same place? Or do you move around a little bit?
Same place, man. Same place, bro. My mom is still in the same apartment.
No kidding.
I'm trying to get her out. She's trying to get us. That's a whole nother story in and of itself. But yeah, man, Bronx.
Yeah, you talk a little about Bronx history, So you were kind of in that. When did you start kind of identifying with the Bronx? Does that happen young, or is it just like, hey, I'm in a new city? Or when do you realize, hey, this is the Bronx and there's history here, and you become connected to that?
Man, that's a great question. I didn't really realize what had happened to my dad in the life and the transition until I was about 8 years old. But as far as like when I really realized the history of the Bronx, that had to be a little bit later, I would say. I was so immersed in the environment that I just think that unconsciously it just became a part of who I was.
Yeah.
Bronx is a very, very, very hard place. I mean, it's a very savage place, and when you're in it and you grow up in it, it just almost becomes normal to you. Until you leave, which was something I never thought would ever happen to me. And then you look back and you're just like, how did I get through this place? And then you tell people, hey, I'm from the Bronx. They're like, you're from the Bronx?
Yeah.
Really from the Bronx? So yeah.
Oh, I did want to ask you about one other thing, and there's about Nigeria, and it's a quote that you have in here, and it says, "Every day is for the thief."
Yeah, that's a corruption saying. Yep.
Man, I mean, that just speaks to everything that you just talked about.
So I remember, sorry to jump ahead a little bit, but when I flew into Nigeria, finished writing the book, as soon as I got off the plane, the customs officials said, "Do you have a gift? Do you have a gift for me?"
Gift. Yeah.
And that meant, do you have money for me to be able to get through customs? There was another time when I was leaving Nigeria, I was with one of my brothers, my half brothers, who still lives there, and we got pulled over, and the cop raised the AK. You know me, I'm a frog man, dude. So I'm like, I'm ready to get out the car, and I'm amped up, and my brother put his hand on my leg, and he's like, don't do it, Remi. It's not worth it. And we had to give this guy money to be able to get to the airport. So that every day is for the thief. Even the kids, man. The kids will get you on the streets. It's just so much a part of the culture. Which is so sad. And it's frustrating for me, especially after, seeing what my father went through, and that was over 30 years ago, 87. I mean, that was almost 40 years ago, and it's still like that. Nothing has changed. And it is what it is, though.
Man. And when do you start realizing the Stark conference? Because you're pretty young now in the Bronx. And maybe if you were, let's say, 13, 14, 15, 16, you'd be more aware of the stark differences between how you grew up in Nigeria, going to these parties, walking downstairs. I love how you talk about sneaking downstairs and avoiding your mom. And so your dad can kind of, talk about you and show you off to his friends type thing. And before you go off to bed again. But at age 5, 6, are you still so young that you're so adaptable that you just do that? Or are you like, man, remember those parties we used to have? What happened to those things? Or, what happened to all those nannies? Or what happened to that cool car and the horseback rides and all that stuff? Like, do you just, like at age 5, 6, 7, do you realize that? Or is it just, hey, just going to adapt now? Something new?
No. My mother, I always give credit to my mom because she did a fantastic job of masking the reality of what had happened. We had, the apartment that we lived in was small, but she made sure that it was pristine. It was clean. We had this big bookcase, which we still have, with all of these books and African literature. The apartment was peppered with my dad's art. that he had collected over the years. And my mom would try her best to cook the good food for us. So I say like, when you're that young, even an apartment is the world to you because it's so big, you're so small. Even that's like everything to you. And that was my world. And my mom did a really good job of protecting us. And I remember we had this car and got broken into many times, but I didn't really realize this until years later. And we would get in the car and just drive to Manhattan. Right. So it was like, we're not going to get on the train and we're not going to go walk down the streets. We're going to get in the car and we're going to jump on a major vegan highway. And then we're going to cross over to the Cross Bronx Expressway. And we're going to get to Manhattan. We're going to get to a nice part of town. Yeah. And my mom, she would work multiple jobs to expose my brother and I to the other side of life. And to remind us of where we came from and what we're destined to become. She would take jobs at art galleries and museums just to be able to take my brother and I for free. Wow. She would save her pennies, and I literally mean pennies, in order to be able to take us to a movie, because she saw the movies as art. To take us to a play. I remember the first play I ever saw was Showboat. And she took us to see Bringing the Noise, Bringing the Funk. And she would just expose it. She would make us read, books about Africa, the art books that my dad had that my mom kept that was on the bookcase. My mom would make us go through them, and she would make us, read New York Times articles and write reports. Again, she created, even at a young age, like 6 years old, she had us sitting at the dinner table writing, And so again, she created this world that protected us, that insulated us from what was going outside. But when we went outside, as we got older and started to be able to venture off on our own, that's when the revelation came. And that was for me when I was about 8 years old. Okay. Because I just remember being in an apartment, and there were a number of things that led up to that. One, I was able to walk to the corner store by myself and walk up to the corner, crackheads walking through DeVoe Park. There's crackheads in the park. There's gang members over here. There's this. Okay, I'm go to this store and there's dudes in mafia suits. I didn't even know what the mafia was, but these Italians with these suits on, and the big collar shirts going into the stores and collecting money, walking out with, a stack of money from the guy who owns the bodega. And I'm seeing this stuff. And then my mom, she can't pay the rent. So I'm going with her to the rental office and watching her beg for an extra few days to pay the rent, to make the money to pay the rent. And then my mom would get my brother and I borrow Ivory soap and say, hey, I can't afford detergent. Wash your underwears and socks and clothes out in the sink and hang them on the shower pole to dry. And as those things happen more frequently, and as I ventured off on my own, that's when the reality came. And I was just like, what? This is not Africa. This is not the life that my dad had for us before. What is this? And I remember just, I shared in my book, just breaking out and crying over my dad's picture, over this photo of my dad, and my mom came in the room and she was just like, what's going on? And I said to her, we don't have anything because dad's not here. But if dad was here, we would have a better life. And that's when it hit me. I'll never forget. I was 8 years old. Yeah.
And you're very entrepreneurial from an early age, though. Yeah. You talk about that in the book too. I mean, you start like a business essentially. Got some scams going on. I mean, did you avoid some of the more, I guess, hardcore, dangerous parts of growing up there, or did you intentionally, or did you just go down this path of trying to create and scam and hustle? And like, what was that like those years between let's say age 8 and then into high school, and you get a little older through high school?
Yeah. I didn't care. For me, it was just like money, power, respect, whatever I got to do to get it. And I blame it on the culture, because growing up in the inner city, and this goes for, in my opinion, almost every inner city, especially in the country, especially when we're talking about the 90s. Hip hop culture had a strong hold on kids, street culture, thug life, all of that stuff. And, I think it's like 70% of African-American kids will grow up in a home without a father. And, me not having my father, I wanted to find a father just naturally, that just instinctively, I wanted to find a man to show me how to be a boy, how to freaking shave, how, what does it mean to love a woman, all of these different things. And I was driven to the streets for that. And I immersed myself in it, from everything I heard through the music. If somebody disrespects you, punch them in the face. I fought a lot. I didn't care. The story. There's this story in the book where I got beat. I was like, I can't remember, about 9, 10 years old. I got beat bad by 2 dudes on the basketball court over, something stupid, and one dude was just out of prison and about 35 years old, and they could have killed me. Right. And, I was just that was my world. Fight, make money, get women. Fight, make money, get women. And then as I grew older, I was just like, I don't want to fight. I just want to make money and get women. But if somebody disrespects me and cross the line, then I'll do what I have to do. And I didn't avoid the evils. I didn't avoid the bad side of the tracks because I grew up on the bad side of the tracks, I started out stealing from my mom, and that progressed to stealing from stores. That progressed to stealing from jobs. And then that progressed to selling drugs. And then that progressed to, running high-level scams, the cell phone scam that I was doing. And at the end of the day, there was a purpose behind it. And it was, in my opinion, it was affirmation. It was getting that affirmation from people because I didn't get it from my dad. And I think you see that a lot with athletes, in my opinion, specifically, football, African-American athletes, football players, basketball players, who, get into these sports, they get all of this money and then they go into the strip club and making it rain, or they go into, buying all of these crazy cars and then giving money to all their friends. In my opinion, and I could be wrong, I think a lot of it is they're seeking that affirmation, that pat on the back that they never got from my dad. And I can say that from experience because everything that I did, even though I didn't realize it at the time, I was trying to make money to get affirmation. So my boys would say, you're the man. So girls could like me. So, all of these things, and I started these rackets for my sneaker, hustle, to all of these different things I did. And when I really look back through wise lenses, it all boils down to, I was crying out for a father to say, you're good. You did good, son, but I was seeking that from the wrong fathers. And man, sorry. I know that was a long answer.
Oh man. It goes back to what we're talking about, popular culture. I mean, we talked about it earlier, and here it is, hip hop culture. It has an influence.
Yes.
That's why it's called the power of popular culture. There's like for my books, people might think they're just grabbing a thriller or a spy novel or a political thriller off the shelf, but I try to weave in a few other things there because, I understand the popular culture because it hit me through all the books that I was reading, all the movies that I was watching, all those things made an impact on me growing up. I'm looking up to Sylvester Stallone playing Rambo. I'm looking up to Arnold Schwarzenegger and Predator and Commando. I'm reading all these books, fiction and non as well. And those things are having an impact on me. And then same thing, what you're talking about. And then we have another that more similar to what I'm talking about is Michael Bay's film, Bad Boys. I love that.
Yeah. Bad Boys.
Yeah. And that made an impact.
A huge impact. I'll never forget. I was 15. My mom took my brother, because we used to watch Martin's TV show all the time, Martin.
It was a great show. Love that show. Great
show. And I would mimic Martin all the time. So when the movie got announced, we saw the trailer, and it was just like the Porsche and these the guns. I was like, Mom, we got to see it. And my mom took my brother and I to go see it. And bro, I was so glued to the screen. It changed my life because that film showed me that I could be something other than just a drug dealer or an athlete. It showed me that I could be a hero in some way. It really, really did, because I never saw I saw myself in these characters, because here you had these 2 guys who looked like me, and then they seemed to in some way come from the same side of the streets as me, but then they also acted like me in a sense. And I was just like, I saw myself in them and I was like, I can be that. Like I can be a hero in some way. And that film train, I'll never forget, dude. I bought the bootleg version. I never told Michael Payne this, but after I watched the movie like twice or three times in the theater, I can't remember. I bought a bootleg cassette tape where somebody went into the movie theater with a camcorder, and I watched that religiously and memorized the lines and everything. And I was just so enthralled with it because it showed me a side that I didn't think I could see. And again, you got to remember, I never thought I would make it out of the Bronx, you know, and I never thought I could be anything else other than, you know, athlete, drug dealer, or, you know, just stick around and work some local job. That's all I knew. That was the world to me. And that film really opened up my eyes. And then fast forward a year later, I was 16 and The Rock came out, and that was it. That's when I was just like, you know, underwater vehicles and fake STVs. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the underwater vehicles coming out into the shower scene and the shower scene, the shootout and the scene, and just the strength of the guys in the black suits and just the coolness and the long hair and all that. And I said to myself, if I ever turn my life around, if I could ever turn my life around, which I don't think I will, I think I'm gonna be here forever. But in an alternate universe, I would do that. I would be a SEAL. I said that to myself. And you know, the rest eventually came into place, you know.
Man, yeah, I love it how you guys connect later on. But man, that movie and Bad Boys, I mean, that was a different style of cinematography coming in. I mean, it was a, you know, music video plus action plus comedy, plus engaging characters that are likable. And I mean, it was just explosions, good bad guys, Taya Leone. Like it was just awesome. It was this amazing mixture. And then The Rock, of course, friggin' amazing. Oh, yeah. Love The Rock. Denny Chalker was my command master chief at Buds when I showed up, and he's in that. So he's in that scene, you know, getting after it. A few of those guys were, I think, 4 of them. I
think all of them were team guys, like, except for the actor. Except for the Spanish guy who was shot in the head because he's like, I gotta go up.
Yeah.
And then the dude who played the SEAL, I forgot his name. He played the SEAL in Navy SEALs too, didn't
Michael
he?
Biehn,
Yeah, Michael Biehn,
yeah. He's played, and in The Abyss, he's played a SEAL,
Yeah, that's right. And he was a gnarly in Aliens. My favorite Aliens, by the way. But yeah, all those, I think the rest of the guys other than those 3 were actual frogmen.
Yeah. Mike Mayer was in there, a few other guys, but man, that was what a great film. And you see that, and you see that as a possibility, or like, hey, if I join the military, that's what I want to do, or was it more like, hey, how do you get there? Like, what were your next steps?
No, it was because you got to remember, I'm still selling drugs. You know what I mean? I'm leaving the movie theater to go sell drugs. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's just like, okay, yeah, whatever. It's like me saying right now, like, dude, like, I'm gonna run for president in 10 years.
Hey.
That's not happening. The likelihood of that happening is slim to none. I'm just trying to connect it to have that moment. It was just a throwaway thing. It's not really gonna happen. And so, you know, I went back into the streets, barely finished high school, graduated on time. And then after high school, you know, I went full-fledged, more hustling, making money, you know, graduated into the cell phone thing, which was making me even way more money, bringing in thousands of dollars a week. I was funneling that money into my record company. I started a record company. I still keep the CD on my desk.
Hey, look at that. Nice.
That's me right there.
Dang.
I was laundering. Ran out, so I ain't got to worry about going to prison for this. And yeah, that was my focus. That was my goal. You know, was to make money and then make it in some way in the music industry and the entertainment industry. And fast forward, I got involved in a deal one day with a drug dealer who went bad. I won't go into details on the book. And my life was threatened. My mom's life was indirectly threatened, and that was a huge wake up call for me. For me, that was like, when I was a kid, my mom used to spank us relentlessly, but not for no reason. Like, she wasn't an abuser. Like, if we cursed or if we freaking lied to her or if we like broke something in the house or something like that, or we did something that was like totally out of line, she would give it to my brother and I. And, I know people think differently of it now, but what that did for me was it instilled this concept of consequences for actions. Like I always instinctively, because of what my mom did and how she raised me, I knew that at some point I'm going to get spanked. Proverbially in some way. And if I don't stop, that spanking can lead to deadly consequences. So when that situation happened with that drug dealer, that was my spanking. That was my wake-up call. That was my, if I do not stop, I'm going to end up dead in prison. And then at the same time, there were people going to federal prison for what I was doing at the office I was working out of. And so all of those things collectively, and I was able to kind of skate out, sneak out before I got that caught up with me. That was just like, hey, you got to stop. So I made him his money back. This was December 2001, about 3 months after 9/11. Made him his money back. And then after that, I was just like, I'm not doing this anymore. And from January to June, I did nothing. Like I didn't want to go to college. I didn't want to work at McDonald's. I didn't know what to do. And then fast forward to June is when I felt the call. I felt his voice, his presence tell me, you need to get out of here. You need to join the military. And that was, I fought against it because at the time, I hated the police and I associated anybody in a uniform as the police, whether you were a firefighter, EMT, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, you were the police to me. And I couldn't stand the police. And again, that all came from the culture that I grew up in. But as I thought about it, I was just like, what else do you have left? What else do you have? Nothing else wrong for you. And so I just remember after battling with that thought for a few minutes, I decided, screw it, let's go see what'll happen. And I went to the Marine Corps recruiter's office first, sat there for 15 minutes. And no one showed up, walked out, went to the Navy recruiter's office. It was a gorgeous Navy recruiter there by the name of Tiana Reyes. In my naive mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get the Navy. I'm going to get this girl. And she was from the Bronx, so she knew I was a damn fool. So she played along and then had me take the practice ASVAB test because I told her I wanted to be a SEAL. I didn't qualify to be a SEAL, but I did qualify to get in the Navy. And she ran my background, found out I had 2 warrants after my arrest. And I was petrified because I knew, like I said, there were people going to federal prison for what I was doing. I didn't know what the warrants were for. And I got up, got ready to run out of the recruiter's office. And she said, where are you going? I said, I'm getting out of here. She said, do you have a suit and tie? And I said, no. She said, do you have some nice pants and a shirt? And I said, why? She said, shut up and just answer my question. And I said, yeah, I think I can find something. She said, come back tomorrow. And I was like, for what? She said, just shut up and come back tomorrow. And I came back the next day and she was in her Navy dress uniform. And she took me to both judges, a judge in New Jersey, the judge in New York. And she advocated on my behalf. She was just like, listen, this kid, he's made mistakes, but he has potential. 9/11 just took place 9 months earlier. He's trying to turn his life around after war and join the Navy. Can you clear his record? Because he can't join the military with a record. And both judges unanimously expunged my record. And, that was huge for me. And then she went a step further and fudged the paperwork to, she pushed everything through the legal system and fudged the paperwork to get me into the Navy. And if it wasn't for her, dude, I'd be freaking screwed. And that's why I try to dedicate my life and everything that I do, whether it's the human trafficking thing, whether it's my school and all these other things, to give back, because like bigger than what she did for me. Because if she didn't do that for me, dude, I'd be dead on prison. As a matter of fact, the guy, Roger Brown, who I used to hustle with, is still in prison to this day. I talk to him all the time. We used to sell drugs together, phones together, everything. He's still sitting in prison. And she saved my life. And the lesson that I got out of her act was, one, though people make mistakes, that doesn't mean that they don't have potential. And two, everybody, you need to if other people are willing to give you a second chance, you got to be willing to give yourself a second chance and a third chance and a fourth chance. And you can't give up on yourself, because you never know what's right around the corner. And that was my path into the Navy. And she died 2 years later. And that crushed me when I found out, but she died 2 years after, getting me.
And you didn't find out till a long time later, though.
I didn't find out until I finished writing the book. I finished writing a book and I was like, damn, I gotta find Tiana. And I was like, I couldn't remember her last name. I could remember Tiana. I couldn't remember her last name. And I found my military, because I was out to Navy. I found my military service record. And I saw all her signatures on it. And I was like, that's her name. And I Googled it. And this memorial page popped up. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, because I wanted her to see how her decision changed my life, man. And not just change my life, how it helped, in return, I was allowed to bless other people. I wanted her to see it. And it crushed me that she wasn't able to see what her decision did, but the good side of it is, I was with her brother. I premiered, my short film at the human trafficking film at the Bronx Film Festival about 2 weeks ago. And her brother came, Mario. And, me and him were tight. And, he was in a similar situation. He got charged with a misdemeanor, and she was in the Navy. She took leave, flew to the Bronx, and took him to the Air Force recruiter, worked out a deal to get him into the Air Force. And then her brother told me that she would drive around the Bronx, the area that she grew up in, and drive up the drug dealers who she grew up with and say, listen, it's nothing for you. Come with me. Come join the Navy. And she would recruit people into the Navy. He was like a Robin. She was insane. So I'm cool with her daughter. Her daughter's like my daughter. As a matter of fact, my daughter is named after her and her daughter. So Tiana's daughter's name is Sierra, and Tiana's name is Tiana. Wow. And obviously last name Ray. My daughter's name is Sienna Ray. So that's a way to give back to Tiana and her family. But it's horrible.
And she passed away of something pretty rare.
Yeah, super rare autoimmune disease. Super, super rare. Yeah. Yeah. She was young. She was like 30. I think she was like 31, something like that. 32. Man,
that's so tough. But she gave, that's pretty good. I mean, for someone, she couldn't have been, what was she like, an E5, E6?
Yeah, she was an E5. I'm pretty sure she was an E5. Yeah. She was either E5 or C6, for sure.
Those are pretty solid moves for E5 to be making, fudging paperwork and going in front of judges and making things happen, I
think she knew that nobody else would have given me a shot, dude. I think the Bronx is a real rough area, and I think she knew that she saw something in me. That's one. I know she saw something in me, but then she also knew that I see something in this kid. Nobody else is gonna give a shot. Yeah. Let me put my anchors on the line. Let me put my chevrons on the line. Excuse me. Amazing. And it paid off.
Incredible. Jeez. And so in you go, and off you go to boot camp.
Yeah. Went to boot camp, went to Navy boot camp, and it was funny. The first night, all of these kids from all across the country were crying in their racks, and I'm 19 going on 20 laughing, But yeah, boot camp was cool. And then when I was at boot camp, a SEAL came, and they had these little, I forgot what they call them, but they're these auditorium type sessions. And the SEAL came to my boot camp division, and he showed this video of SEALs jumping from planes and scuba diving and shooting guns and doing all this long hair and stuff. I'm like, I want to do that. And then after he showed the video, he's like, who wants to scream for Buds? And then, you got to be able to swim. And then he listed all stuff. He asked me, and I did not qualify in any area. I didn't know how to swim. I didn't have the academic ASVAB score. I couldn't do one push-up, probably 10 push-ups. And I couldn't do pull-ups or any of that stuff. And so I just remember just all those guys in my division, leaving, and just me who wanted to go to the Buds, and me just sitting there with the rest of the guys who didn't want to go. And I was just crushed. I was just like, I'm going to freaking get there. Daniel, Dirty Daniel Corbett?
No.
Okay. He's a team guy 5. He was a damn man too, but he was in my boot camp division. We're still friends to this day. We were talking the other day, but he was in my boot camp division, and out of everybody in my boot camp division, only me and him were the only two who eventually who made it through Buds.
No kidding.
And it was a bunch of guys that left that day. Uh-huh. But but yeah, man, that crushed me. But that was my motivation. That was the best thing that happens to me in life is rejection. I have a love-hate relationship with rejection. You know, we all hate rejection, right? And especially being a writer in Hollywood, you get rejected all the time. You know what I'm saying? But it fuels me. Yeah. Like it's become like my fire. And so I graduated boot camp and went to my first command naval hospital, Camp Pendleton. And dude, I would run 3 miles to the pool from my barracks, jump in the shallow end, try to figure it out, run 3 miles back to the barracks. You know, watch the Buds 2, 3, 4 video, watch how the guys worked out. And I created workouts. I bought the Ads Back for Dummies book, and I checked into my command in January 2003. And I checked out in January 2004 for Buds. So like, you know, I wasn't playing, you know, and that's
wild. And you see Tears of the Sun somewhere in there too, right, Antoine?
Yeah. Antoine,
so great.
I was a fool. That was the street side of me that didn't work out. You know, there was a lot of times where I wanted to go back to the old Remi, but I wanted to prove Tiana's decision right. You know, that she made the right decision. And but there was one time when Tears of the Sun came out. Never forget. And I wanted to see the movie so bad, but I was on duty, and I had been duty driver like multiple times, maybe 7, 8 times. I had already had orders to Buds at this point too. And I had seen the movie multiple times. I'm sorry, I had seen the trailer multiple times. Yeah. But I was on duty, and I had duty multiple times and never got called for the duty drive. It was always, I just stayed in my barracks and never anything happened. And so I was like, you know what? It's Friday night, just came out. I know I'm on duty, but nobody's going to call. I never get the call for duty drive. So I go drive all the way down. I'm such a fool. I drive all the way down to the Gaslamp District in San Diego from Camp Pendleton, which is like an hour and a half.
It's a trek, yeah.
Yeah, and I get in there. The credits start rolling. The opening credits start, and the duty freaking phone or page or whatever it is. I can't remember page or phone. And I had a task. I had to go pick up medication. But here's a crazy thing: the medication I had to pick up
Balboa
was that Balboa.
Right there, which is like 5 minutes.
Which was 5 minutes away. So that was my saving grace. I left the movie theater, got the medication, raced up there, didn't answer the phone or pager at all. And then I got chewed out when I got there. And the lady was like, what are you know, because this particular person hated my guts anyway. And, you know, she was just like, where were you? I was just like, I fell asleep. And she's like, well, why didn't you answer the phone? I was like, well, when I woke up, I heard your voicemail. So I figured out, I'll just go down there and get the medication. She's like, oh, you're in trouble. You didn't take the duty. Here you go, blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, whatever. I got the medication. Go take it. And I could have gone to a freaking mass for that. But because it worked in my favor, because that lady hated me so much that she always like picked at every little thing that I did. So when that situation actually happened, like none of the higher ups believed her. Oh, wow. So
dude, I got out. Yeah. Nice. And then you make it to Buds.
And then make it to Buds, make it to Buds, and that was eye-opening. It was kick in the nuts experience. The cold. I remember checking in January, so I had
nice. So did I. Yep.
Yeah, it was miserable. Sucked at swimming. I didn't know before I went to Buds. I thought you just had to pass the 500-yard swim. Oh. I didn't know you had to do these time swims.
Yeah. Yeah. And, was it 2 nautical mile ocean swims you do every?
Yeah, 2 nautical miles, man. Yeah. So I
every week.
Every week, 1 a week. And at that time, you just had to pass 1 in each phase.
Oh, really?
And, they changed it. The second time I was in Buds, they changed it to 50%. You got to pass 50% of your timed evolutions. But the first time was you had to pass 1 swim in first phase, 1 run, and 1 whole course in first phase.
Wow.
And they changed it to 50. You have to pass at least 50% of your run, swims, and whole courses.
Oh, man. Interesting. I think ours was you'd fail 1, you could make it up, I think, and they had a makeup, I think. And then, but if you failed 2, then you went to a review board. And if they didn't like you, then you're out. If they did, you're like, hey, work on your swims, work on your O course, work on your run, whatever, and try to keep you in. But I think that's wild. That's different.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was crazy. But I failed every swim. I was swimming.
Who was your swim buddy? Did they put you? I mean, they do it by times. You do like, what do you do? Some swim when you first get there, and they time everybody, and then they just take the fastest, and then kind of just go down the line. So were you guys the two bottom, like the two last?
No. Actually, I had a guy named Peterson. It's so funny because Peterson was, there's not many black dudes in Buds, right? To go to Buds, right? It's like 3 black dudes in Buds. And I remember in my Buds class, and I remember JJ is the black instructor. We used to end up together on condition runs in some crazy way. And he's always say, "There you guys are again, the 3 Negroes back together again." He used to just say that all the time. And I remember when we did, Peterson was my swim buddy. JJ was like, why are you two swimming together? Like, why are you swimming together? But he was a better swimmer than I was. He was a way better swimmer than I was. And, but yeah, I was swimming 120 minutes, 2 mile time ocean swims. And the passing time was 85 minutes.
80, yeah, I was going to say like 85, 80, and 75, I think.
Yeah. And the instructors wouldn't pull me because they were hoping that I would quit. And at the end of every swim, I was either hypothermic or borderline hypothermic.
Yeah.
And so, like, they thought I was going to quit at some point. But I kept on showing up day after day. But I didn't have a problem with anything else, like drown proofing, not tying, 50-meter underwater swim. It was just those 2 mile time ocean swims were my kryptonite. Yeah. And so fast forward, I get to make it through the first 2-3 weeks, get to 3 weeks of phase, and then get to Hell Week. Before I started Hell Week, I was spitting up blood. I had pneumonia in sight. But as a corpsman, I was already a corpsman. So
before Hell Week, you're already spitting up.
Yeah, I was already spitting up blood, and I hid it because I knew that.
Right.
I knew the signs and symptoms. I knew what was going on in my body, and I felt like the crackles in my chest. So I knew that if I reported it to Buds Medical, that it would be pulled and have to go through day one. And I was like, I've already went through 3 weeks of a freaking freezing cold winter first phase. I don't want to do that again. Oh. And so I hit it, went into Hell Week, and then Tuesday of Hell Week, more to the story, I hit the wall. I literally hit the wall. It's all in the book, but pneumonia, site, rhabdo, my core temperature dropped to 88.7, almost. Yeah, I ended up in the Balboa ICU for like a week and change. And it was a bad situation.
And you had to tell them, right? You had to like self-diagnose.
Yeah, well, what happened was there's a lot more to the story, but in short, when I went tits up, they did a full-on check, and I think they had the X-ray machine at Buds Medical at the time, the quick one, and they did that, and they saw my lungs, and they was like, "Dude, this guy's lungs are shredded wheat," and I was spitting up Jello, like thick Jello, and that's when they rushed me from Buds Medical because I think this was during base tour, so then they rushed me from base tour, Buds Medical. I think they did an X-ray, a quick exam, and then it went from there to Balboa, and I was there. I was there for a while, man.
Yeah, that's pretty serious.
Yeah. And I'll never forget, dude, like after I got released from the hospital and went back to Buds, I was like, oh man, I hope that they're gonna roll me forward.
I know. I love how you write that in the book. You're like hoping they roll you forward. Because sometimes they do that if you make it to, I don't know, Thursday, like Wednesday night, something like that.
Yeah. And Master Chief Hoffman came in. He's like, that's what I'm talking about, man. God is going to go until he died. That's what we look for and see if they're going to go until they're dead, and they're going to keep going. He's like, I'm glad you didn't quit. Because the instructor thought I was faking. So he's like, I'm glad you didn't quit. And then
and you're like, oh man, he's going to roll me forward. Yeah.
I know. But he stopped, and I was like, all right, here's the coming. See, Chief Fortin started talking. I was like, he's going to tell me to roll forward. He's like, yeah, man, great job. I'm glad you didn't quit. And then he was like, because a guy died, and the reason why they came in and talked because Rob Vetter died in front of me in my class. Yeah, during the conditioner run. So like that class, like in 250. And so they already had a Buds fatality. And I think everybody was nervous. And I think Buds Medical was under a lot of scrutiny after that because like they were like, yo, you almost died. And as a matter of fact, a kid just died like 2 weeks ago from sight.
Yeah, I read that.
Right?
Yeah, I read
that. So Chief Fortin was like, he was like, yeah, dude, you did a great job, but gotta start day one all over again. I was like, oh. So yeah, man, started day one all over again. But the cool thing was I was in Buds with 250 was Mikey Mansour was in my boat crew, Medal Wine winner, great dude. Workman, Extortion 17, great dude. He was in my boat crew. Ryan Job, was in 250, great dude. So it's like, it sucked. And, but I got to meet so many guys being in different classes. Now I rolled into 251 and then who's in my boat crew? Mark Lee. You know what I mean? Wow. And so I got to, be in buds with some dudes who went on to become legends. And made it through Hell Week, went through first phase again, made it through Hell Week. Right after I finished Hell Week, got double rope of swims because I still had to pass any swims. Got through rowback land, went to dive phase, ended up failing my first 2 swims in dive phase, and then fell a test in pool week. They got performance dropped.
Pool comp, was it pool comp, is that right?
The tread.
Oh, the tread then, okay.
Yeah. And I needed that to happen. I really, really needed that to happen to me because back to that hip hop pride, verbose type demeanor that comes from the culture. I got very prideful, especially after I made it through Hell Week, because in my mind, I was like, here's this guy, here I am, I made it from Africa to the Bronx, sold drugs in the Bronx, evaded going to jail, made it into the Navy, made it in the SEAL training, made it through Hell Week, nobody can't tell me anything. In my mind, like I knew absolutely everything. And that was dangerous. And I needed to be humbled. And, during the weekends when instructors would come and work with guys on stuff, I was too busy partying at the Gaslamp district because I thought I had already arrived, that I wouldn't show up. And that was my downfall. And I remember going, after I failed, the last tread, I remember going to my ARB board and the instructors were like, hey, do you know why we're dropping you? And do you have anything to say? And I said, absolutely. This is my fault. And that was the first time in my adult life I took responsibility for my actions. Wow. Because I had always blamed everybody for everything. It was never my fault. It was always this person's fault. It was always the system. It was always something. And that was the first time in my life I freaking raised my chin and I said, it was me, dude. Like I screwed up. Like, and I'm going to go pay the man. And I hope that I get a chance to come back at some point. And so, that's where I coined the phrase, failure is only a failure if you don't learn from it. But if you learn from it, it's a lesson. Mm-hmm. And the lesson that I got out of that failure was, one, never show up to anything unprepared. And 2, walk in humility, especially when you become successful or achieve just some level of success, because if you don't walk in humility, you're going to get crushed. Pride will eventually find its way to you and crush you, and you will pay the man. And so, day after I got dropped from Buds, I was in the pool. I didn't know if I was going to get a chance to go to Buds. I was going to First Marine Division, and there was a guy in my Buds class, and a few guys who were Buds around the same time as me, who were corpsmen, and they either got dropped or quit, and they went to First Marine Division and got killed. So I didn't know if I was going to get a chance to go back, but I just knew that if I had that chance, I would earn it. And just to fast forward, I got that chance. I went to First Marine Division. I was there for like a year and change. And my LPO at First Marine Division ended up becoming the command career counselor. So he went from being in charge of like 12 corpsmen to being in charge of like 800 corpsmen. And so when he knew my work ethic, he knew what I wanted. So he talked to the command master chief of First Marine Division. It was like, hey, this guy, he made his dive phase of Buds and he's hungry. He has great evals. He wants to get back. Can we let him go early? And the command master chief was like, if he signs a page 13 that says if he quits or doesn't make it, that he's going to come back and do 3 years or do 2 deployments, then I'll let him go to Buds. And I bet on myself. I was just like, you know what, dude? all chips in. I make it. And I went back and went through first phase again, third time, went through Hell Week again, made it through. We went to dive phase, made it through. Went to third phase, made it through. And yeah.
Dude. Not many people have gone through 3 Hell Weeks. There's a few people that have done 2, still not a lot. There can't be. How many people have done 3 Hell Weeks?
I don't know, but I don't recommend it. I don't recommend it one bit.
Oh, man.
We're in my kneecaps, man, in my neck.
Did they get from the first to the second to the third? Is there one that stands out as worse than the others? I mean, other than not making it through them, but physically, or did you? Was it better to know what was coming, or not better?
Yeah.
Or
No, it was definitely easier knowing what was coming.
Okay.
It was like, I mean, because once you go through, you when instructions like, if you guys keep sucking, we're gonna make Hell Week go until the next Sunday. You're gonna do this 8 days. And my mom like, yeah, whatever, man, I'm fine.
Okay. Okay.
The games that are coming, you kind of get a sense for how long the surf tortures are going to be. You get a sense for like how long the beat down sessions, because they got to get to the next evolution. They got to get to the whole course. We got the whole course at this time. The instructors want to go home. So you kind of get it all figured out, and not all figured out, but you got a good sense of what's going to happen. So it does make it easier.
It's so wild. And did you guys watch the same movie each time? Because when I read in the book that you guys watched Gladiator for at least one of them, I was like, because for ours, Braveheart had come out, but they hadn't started watching it yet for Hell Weeks, and for whatever reason, our class watched Apocalypse Now.
Oh, did you guys?
Which is not a good movie to watch before you go into Hell Week. I mean, you know how it ends. I mean, it's pretty depressing. It's kind of dark. It's not like you don't watch that film for like motivational, inspirational type purposes. Gladiator, Braveheart are awesome, but this is the end. Like having that plan in your head as you go into Hell Week is less than ideal. But did you guys watch Gladiator every time, or was it Gladiator for one?
I want to say, I think we watched, we for sure watched Gladiator once. I'm trying to think of the movie we may have watched. I think we did Braveheart the second time.
Yeah.
Memory serves me right.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But we did, I want to say we did like 2 or 3 movies.
Well, that makes sense because, Apocalypse Now is like 2 or 3 movies if you watch it in its entirety.
So I'm pretty sure we probably did Gladiator, all 3 times, and then watched like another movie.
Got it.
With that, I'm pretty sure.
And for people that are wondering that we're talking about, you go to this classroom. I mean, it's been a moon or 2 since I did it, but they have some like pizza, maybe some Gatorade. You watch a movie, and then at some point you get ushered out to the tents, and then Hell Week starts, and off you go to the races. But so that brought some memories back. I was like, oh man, I can't believe they made us watch Apocalypse Now. I mean, it just was not probably not the greatest. But 3 Hell Weeks, and this is pretty cool in here. You write this year, class 267. You have run 806 miles. You have swum 77 miles. You have paddled a boat for more than 19 hours. You have run the obstacle course 29 times. You have spent 35 hours diving underwater. You have done 126 hours of physical training. You have shot 3,000 rounds of ammunition. You have treaded water for 5 minutes without your dive gear. You have held your breath for 50 meters underwater, and you have completed the most demanding training week in United States military, Hell Week. If you're standing here today, that means you have met the requirements I just listed and the many other requirements necessary to graduate, buds. Yeah, that's good stuff right there. I think they say that at every class graduation or something like that. But it's a pretty cool thing. Pretty motivational. Fires you up. And I love reading the guys' names in here, like Fortin. I remember him. Coons. Like I was seeing these names in here that I remember. I was like, oh man, that was pretty cool. But then you go to jump school. Like you can't punish you. You got to do 3 Hell Weeks. And then you go to jump school and you jump on broken ankles or a broken ankle. What was that about?
Yeah, man. So, I went to, did my get to static line jump, did the first jump, all good. Then did the second jump. When we did the second jump, I was the second man out. So there was the first guy out, and I was the second man out. And then you had the third and fourth guy. And when we got out, I fell pad. We didn't realize it because of the spacing, because if you look at it, it looks like they're on the same level, but I fell slightly past the number 1 guy. And so as we're coming down, I was already into the wind, and I hear the DZ commander on the ground. He had a bull on, and he's screaming, number 2 guy turn into the wind. And when I jumped out, I was the number 2 guy. I didn't realize that. And so I'm like, this guy can't be talking to me. Like, I'm already into it. So then, like, the screaming just gets more and more prominent. Number 2 guy, turn into the wind now. You need to turn into the wind now. It's going to be too late. I'm like, nah, he can't be talking. He's like, you need to do it now. My number 2 guy. Steered to Born. So I'm like, oh, no. It wasn't Born. It was a radio because we all had on the walkie-talkies.
Because you're doing this in San Diego. You're not going to Benny at this point.
Okay. Right down here in San Diego at Brownfield. And I was like, this is my second jump. This dude on the ground might know something I don't know. I should probably listen to him. And because I thought he was talking to me. Mm-hmm. And I started turning out of the wind. I was already in the wind.
Oh, man. I
started turning out of the wind. And as soon as I turned my parachute, because it was a super windy day. It was a really windy day. As soon as I started turning, I felt the wind hit and I just started going down fast and fast and fast. And I had to make a decision. And the decision was, do I correct and potentially land sideways, like with the wind, like if the wind's coming this way, like this, and like really freaking break my hips and jack myself up? Yeah. Or do I just like stay with my back to the wind and just try to do a freaking gnarly PLF? And I didn't have time to turn, full, because I didn't have time to turn fully around. And so I just stayed, and like seconds later, I hit the ground. And as soon as I hit the ground, I heard my right ankle snap, crack, on pop. Oh. And when I hit the ground, again, I had to make another decision. Do I report this injury, or do I try to tough it out and knock out my last 2 jumps and never have to potentially never have to do a static line ground jump again? And I opted for the latter. Wow. So I opted for the first option, and I didn't report the injury. Being a corpsman, I knew how to manipulate the medic, and I manipulated her, and was able to. As soon as I got on the bus, I told the guys, and I was like, "Yo, man, I broke my ankle." And they was like, "Oh man, that sucks. We'll kind of hide it, help you hide it." The last 2 jumps, and the bus pulls up to the hangar, and we get an announcement, we're not doing any more jumps for the day, because we were going to do all 4 jumps. Done. Now it's going to go to the hospital. And they was like, we're not doing any more jumps for the day because the winds are way too high. We got wind warnings, this and that, which they were already high. It was like, more jumps is going to potentially hurt somebody. I was like, it's too late for that. And so I was like, damn it. So literally, my boys helped me get into my car, drove my car home, and had to crawl up the steps into my apartment. Got into my apartment, just had to crawl everywhere. And I was determined. It was just like, I'm gonna finish this thing. I had a buddy of mine come to my apartment the next morning. He spatted on my ankle. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep on my back because the brake was there that my foot would fall down. With the bone. I couldn't sleep on my side because the foot and bone would go down this way. I couldn't sleep on the other side, same thing. And so I just said, you know what? I had to sleep sitting. And then the next morning, a buddy of mine who played for San Diego State football team came and spatted up my ankle. And then I went back to the hangar, and they had us do the practice box jumps. You guys do that?
I can't remember. It was all old school Fort Benning. So we did the tower. Yeah, we did the box. I think you progress. So probably 1 full week I did of that, but I've just suppressed that from my memory.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, like one of the ways they train us on how to PLF, or PLF stands for parachute landing fall. It's like supposed to be a controlled fall, because the static line jump chutes do not provide the best support when you're hitting the ground. So you got to kind of learn how to hit the ground in a controlled way. So one way they make you practice doing a PLF is you have these steps. It's about 3 or 4 steps.
Oh yeah, we did that. Now I remember. Yeah.
And then you jump off and you do a practice PLF. So I get there, and I was the first up. Adeleke, last name, A. And I did my first one, and all the guys in my class were like, they were cringing. And I was like, all right, I'm good. And they was like, nope, do it again. The instructors, it's like, you didn't land right. Because I didn't. I couldn't land right because I couldn't land on my right foot. And they made me do it again. They made me do it. Every time I hit the ground, the bone shifted and moved. They made me do it again. And then finally, the medic who I had manipulated the day before, I told her I sprained my left ankle. She ran up and she's like, no, stop. He sprained his left ankle. He can't keep doing this. And I was like, where were you freaking 10 minutes ago, lady? And that's how I was able to kind of, get through it, and did my third jump, and then did my fourth jump, and then went to the hospital and couldn't walk for 4 months.
Wow.
But I never had to do a static line ground. I did a static line water jump, but I never had to do a static line ground jump again.
No kidding. I think we had to do 5, but maybe my memory, it's been a long time. My jump school was in 97. So at Fort Benning, I remember 5 jumps for some reason, but
it is 5. So it's 5. It's 5 to complete. It's 4 to complete the course. 4 is the minimum to complete the course. And then, but like if you get injured on your 4th, then you graduate. Like the 5th is just like a hoo-yah extra one, just in case something happens.
Just in case you didn't get enough with those first 4. But this is cool. You're right. I was a complete mess when I got back on the plane for my last jump. I was in so much pain, and then depression began to creep in. First, you get rolled out of Hell Week in 250. Then you get rolled for swims in 251. Then you get dropped from buds in 253. Then you get rolled into third phase in 266. Now this, just as I had during my other classes, I had grown close to this group of guys, and I knew that after this jump, they would move on to their other qualifications and then their SEAL teams. Once again, I would be left behind. As I sat with my head down, I felt a slap on the top of my helmet, which prompted me to look up. Get your head up, Adeleke. It was Dill. I lifted my head and stared at him as he continued. Look, I know your ankle is jacked up. I know your body is a mess, but listen, this is who we are. This is what we do. We do the hard things. We do the things that no one can do, and we do them with a smile. So I want you to pick your head up, stop feeling sorry for yourself, and jump out of the plane like the frogman that you are. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That fired me up, man.
Fires me up right now. I want to go jump right now.
Yeah, man.
Not really.
And that's what the brotherhood is about, right? It's about encouraging each other, holding each other accountable to the standard. And, and he held me accountable to the standard. And would I have jumped out of the plane anyway? Yeah, I was going to jump out of the plane anyway. But my attitude wasn't in the right place. And I needed to have the attitude of a frogman. He reminded me of that. And, and I take that story with me in everything that I do, is to maintain that level of excellence and integrity in what you do, because, you never know who's watching. But even if nobody is watching, you still got to do it, because that's what our trident is about. That's what our brotherhood and our lifestyle is about. It's about doing everything with excellence, regardless of whether you're going to get a pat on the back or not, regardless of whether somebody's watching or not. And so, I love that story.
That's great. That thing that stood out to me in there. And then you get to, so you're down now for, again, though, you can't walk for how long?
4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
You check into your SEAL team like on crutches?
Healed up and finished the rest of SQT, and then went to my team.
Oh, I see. Okay. Got it. Yeah. A little different than ours. Yeah. Got it. Okay. Yeah. You go to your team and you walk in, you run into Chris Kyle's one of the first people you run into.
Yeah. Because he was in the task unit, like when I got there. And dude, I didn't know who he was. You know what I mean? I had just kind of heard things. I heard about this guy who's a sniper. When you're in buds and SQT, you don't hear a lot of what's going on in the operational world from the legend, so to speak. And so I ran into him. I didn't know who he was, and it was just like cool, because I'm like, hey, what's up, man? And I'm SO2 Adeleke. He's like, Kyle, And it was just that was years later. That's when he died. That's why I was like. But the crazy thing was, you had these 2 different people from 2 completely different worlds.
Yeah.
That was the thing that really boggled my mind, because Chris is from a completely different Texas born and bred, you know what I mean? Like, probably wanted to be a frogman since he was a young man, big dude, sniper cat. And I'm this dude from the streets of the Bronx, and these 2 worlds. And that's what I loved about the SEAL team, the cultures that, are brought together, the different lifestyles, the backgrounds, people who've gone to Yale and Princeton, dudes who were lawyers and decided I want to be a SEAL. It just brings together the cream of the crop, and just people from such eclectic backgrounds. It's the coolest thing. And then we all work together. We all work together and get the job done together. And that was awesome. Now, and I think that's a lesson that we really, really need in our culture today, in America. It's this idea of, we we can be from different backgrounds or have different beliefs, but we're one nation, we're one country. We should still be able to work together to get the job done. We don't have to love each other or be infatuated with each other, but we can work together and get the job done. And I really hope that message kind of gets out there a little bit further, because it's desperately needed. I hate this division that we have in our country, because it's not what our brothers and sisters died for. You know what I mean? So I don't want to tangent.
No, and it's exacerbated by people who benefit from that division, namely politicians and tech companies. But we're right in the middle inside this L ambush, But man, that always stood out to me too. My entire time in the teams, my entire 20 years, that always stood out to me, how different people coming from all those different backgrounds that you just talked about come together, and then we solve problems. And having all those different backgrounds working on a problem set together allows you to adapt and really to apply all of that, all those years of experience, lifetimes of experience, but not all the same, because then you can just solve it with one person. All these different ones come together. I think that really allowed us on the battlefield to be able to solve problems aggressively. But that's how we did it, is because we had so many different backgrounds in there in the teams. That stood out. That has always stood out to me by my entire time.
Everybody, 100%. Everybody's able to bring something to the table.
Exactly.
And I think that's what helped me out tremendously, doing the human stuff, being overseas and doing that, because I was able to bring something to the table, bring that street element, growing up in the street, interacting with drug dealers and crackheads and, and trying to figure out, is this person telling the truth? Is this person a threat or not a threat? And, just being able to bring that flavor into the human world, where I'm having to meet with sources and run meetings and, do surveillance and counter surveillance in an urban style environment, and figure out, is this intelligence right? Or is this intelligence wrong? Is this person BSing me? Is this person too scared to tell me the truth? So that just speaks to that point as it relates to, bringing these different flavors, and these different backgrounds into SOF, which is, it's definitely invaluable.
Yeah. Well, how did you get on the human track? And for those listening, human intelligence is like developing sources and getting information and putting together these target packages, or giving that information to other people who are putting together these target packages, putting that piece of the puzzle together. But how did you get down that path, and what were those deployments like?
Yeah, it was when I found out about it in SQT, because we did like a little mini introduction to, I'm not sure what can say it, but I won't say the term introduction to human. I'll just say that. And when we did, I was just like, man, this is cool. I didn't know that the SOF had that type of capability.
Yeah.
I had that. I knew they were snipers, breachers, medics, all that stuff. I didn't know that. And so, when I got to my team, I was already a corpsman. So, there's no getting away from that. But my platoon chief was like, Hudica was like, yo, dude, he was like, what else would you like to do? And I was like, dude, I'd love to go to human school. And he was like, you can't go. They typically don't allow new guys to go. You got to do at least a deployment first before you can go. And I was like, all right, I'll be patient and do my job. So fast forward, we were getting ready to deploy. Fast forward to this was I want to say September or October, after we had already finished our workout. We were in SIT, and we found out where we were going to go deploy, and they needed more human guys, because there were a lot of HVTs, and there weren't enough, human guys to help track and build intelligence packages on the HVTs. And so my OIC was like, yo, who wants to go? And I was like, my hand shot up, I'd like to go. And so I got a waiver from my OIC, my platoon chief, and command CO, and went through the whole screening process, which was cool, pretty cool. And then after that, I went to the school, and that sucked. Yeah. But the blessing in that was the writing, man. My mom already talked about how my mom would have my brother and I write when we were kids, but But when you get there, like just the level of writing where you have to write in a way where somebody can pick up a report and read it, 10 years from now and read it. So it happened that day. So I really learned like writing as it relates to storytelling, because there's the difference between a writer, in my opinion, and a storyteller. And you have some people who are just writers. That's all they can do is write. And then you have some people who are just storytellers, and that's all they can do is storytell. But then you have people who can merge both, where they're writers and storytellers, And so that's where I want to say my skill set as a storyteller as it relates to writing was enhanced. And after then that's kind of how I got into it. And then we deployed and CENTCOM, Iraq, and dude, like, had a turnover with the human guys before who were there with Team One guys, and jumped straight in, meeting the sources, doing all that stuff. I had the, thin skin and the MP5 and all that stuff, and throughout the beard and all that, doing all that cool stuff, and just hit the ground running. I really felt like I could connect with the sources, because they weren't in the hood, but they were in a very rough, hard, harsh environment. You know what I mean? They were surrounded by various figures. They just wanted peace. They just wanted, like, what most people in the Bronx want. They just want to be able to live go do their job, come home, feed their kids, go to sleep. They don't want all the craziness. And that was something that I was able to really empathize with a lot of the sources of, because that's all they wanted. They just wanted to be able to, they didn't want like the terrorism. They didn't want, the IED. They didn't want all of this craziness. And so I was just able to come down to level and I enjoyed it. And I felt like I was blessed to be able to live, best of both worlds, because I was able to do the intelligence side of things. And then I was able to build those packages that would lead to us kicking down doors. So I was able to kick down doors and do DAs and do that kind of stuff. And I remember one time, like, I think I shared this story in the book, but I was running the source, and he had all this information on this bad dude, this HBT that we have been tracking. I think CAG guys have been tracking him for a while as well. And so I did my meeting in my shirt and my regular pants, civilian stuff. And then I was like, all right, got the target at this location. I'll be right back. And left the meeting. And then next thing, pick him up, bring him to base. Next thing he sees me in my digis and, kit, everything, ski mask on. He's like, who are you? You know what I mean? So, and then we had to bring him on out and help identify somebody. Yeah. But it was like, but that was just, I just loved it, man. I loved it. And, like you, man, like James Bond and Jason Bourne, and just like, those are all guys that, and stories that I always found cool, Treadstone and just all of that, and so like, I really wanted to it was cool to be a part of that world, and and especially given the background. And that was kind of the inspiration for my next book that's coming out in 2023, a fiction book called The Chameleon.
Nice. I remember you talked about that.
Yeah. And so, and a lot of it's all, fiction.
Great title. Yeah,
thank you. It's Black Box Chameleon. And that character is kind of very loosely based off of me. And, so there's that African story and all that stuff in the world. But a big part of it was this kid who came from this area, but that was able to figure out his life and go into the CIA and be a Black Box Chameleon agent. And yeah, man, hopefully we can inspire more people through that. But anyway, I love the world of human intelligence. I got to do 3 deployments, got to do it all, man. And, it was so fulfilling. And I want to say, it's the biggest moment of my naval career, man, was my very first op, man. Like, we didn't get into a firefight. It wasn't anything hairy. It was just, I was the gunner, and we pulled up to target, assault force dismounted, hit the target, pulled a bunch of IED material and bombs and bomb maker material and HVT off target. And I just remember hearing everything over comms as I'm just sitting there, just staring at the night sky through my nods. And I was just like, man, like, I made it. I made it. And I remember saying, if I don't do anything else in my career as a frogman, as a human being, I made it. And so, I loved my time in the teams, and I loved the opportunities that it gave me and the places I was able to go. And then the guys, man, as you know, the brothers, man, the brotherhood of the guys that I was able to serve with. And, we're still brothers to my day. I'm closer to a lot of guys in the teams than I am some of my own brothers. But make sure you can relate to that too. But it was awesome.
Oh, man. Amazing. So you kind of go back to back 3 in a row and then decide to move on. And is Hollywood the draw? Do you already know that you want to write, direct, act? Like, what's the progression there?
Yeah, it was all crazy, man. So like my last year was like a shore duty type situation. I was helping out at the Motivators. I know they changed the name, but
Dive Motivator, maybe. Yeah.
And dude, my first son was born my second of last year, and then my second son was born in June, and my contract was up the upcoming January. And I was just like, I was in grad school. So I had gotten they had the program for the SEALs to get their degree through University of Charleston, West Virginia. So I had already got my bachelor's and I was doing my grad school thing. And I was just like, man, I want to be home with my kids. It's been 13 years. I did 13 years total in the Navy. And I was just like, my dad died when I was 5 and I want to be home. And I have a brother-in-law who's a YPO and out of Canada. I'm not sure if you're familiar with YPO.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, YPO stands for Young Presidents Organization. These are all guys who are millionaires and billionaires, and they become millionaires and billionaires under the age of 40. And there's chapters all over the world. And my brother-in-law is a YPO. And so like towards the end of my career, he would, have me do consulting stuff with him and he would introduce me to guys in his forum. And I was just like, oh, cool. Like I'm going to do this. I'm going to just consult, take, special operations principles to translate into business and share those principles. And so I kind of started doing that. And that's what led me to pursue my master's degrees, because I didn't want to just be like, I'm a team guy. Like, you know what I mean? I wanted to be able to kind of give the science behind things as it relates to business too. And so I got out in January, and that's what I was pursuing, and that's what I was going to stick with. And then fast forward to May of 2016, I got a phone call from this lady who was just like, hey, I work with Michael Bay. And I'll never forget, I was in my office with another house, but the same office set up. And she was writing papers, and she was just like, hey, Bay's looking for somebody with your background, and you're interested to work on a project. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, send me your pictures. And I sent her some pictures, and she sent them to Bay, and then Bay was like, cool, he's in. And that was Transformers the last night. That was my first project. That was the first thing I did.
That's because you'd worked with SEALs before, specifically on Transformers also. You've done other things, obviously rock and stuff too, but Transformers, I think every movie had SEALs in it, I think.
Yeah, 13 Hours, all the Transformers that he did had SEALs in it. And yeah, The Rock. I mean, I'm trying to think of even recent stuff. I think even the one he did with the Rock and Dwayne and Mark Wahlberg, the drug one down in Miami. They were SEALs on ambulance. I did ambulance with him 2 years ago, and I was a SEAL, but I played an undercover cop. But there were like 2 other SEALs on that as well. So he's definitely like, super supportive of SEALs, and SEALs in the arts as well. And so worked on that project, and then I got hired to do some other consulting work and other consulting / acting work. And
did you love it right away? Did you know that's what you were gonna go do, or was it kind of like buying some time to work on the master still? Or
at the time, it's interesting because it's like one of those things where I love storytelling. I just didn't know how or what that was going to look like later. At the period, because it was consulting and acting, it was like, this is it. But as I began to expand and read scripts and work with other people and do other things, that's when I really, really began to get more dialed in.
Okay.
And it got dialed into, I want to be a writer-director. Yeah. But first it started with, I just want to be a writer. Like, I just want to be a writer. And I wrote my book, Transformed. And right after I wrote my book is when I was working on 6 Underground. And during 6 Underground, that's when I was like, dude, I want to write screenplays. And so then I wrote the Chameleon screenplay. I figured, that chameleon concept, black box chameleon. I wrote the Chameleon screenplay, and then continued consulting. And then I wrote a screenplay called The Last Shall Be First, which is a true story about the first group of African Americans to serve with special operations. Crazy story. I never heard the story. It's the All Black Rangers. This was during the Korean War. Gnarly story. Oh, yeah. It's crazy, bro. So I'll just give you a piece of this. So we were getting smashed during the Korean War because that was the first time we encountered guerrilla warfare. Prior to the Korean War, it was like the Nazis had their uniforms, the Japanese had their uniforms, we had our uniforms, they had their flags, we had our flags, a lot of stuff. We had like pretty much clear battle lines and who was who in the zoo. During the Korean War, that's when we had people in clothes running around and doing all kinds of booby traps on. And the U.S. forces never encountered guerrilla warfare. So back in the summer of 1950, we were just getting slaughtered to the point where the CIA got together with the Army and said, we need to create a unit that can conduct guerrilla warfare, that can fight fire with fire. And they looked at a bunch of different military units, and one of the units they took was the Rangers, because the Rangers had been around. And they essentially the very first Ranger Special Operations Ranger School was in October of 1950. And so many people had left the military after World War II. The military had completely downsized, and they opened up the Ranger School to Blacks. So you had the triple nickel, the guys, you had, Army Service Corps guys, and the lone white guys were able to all go to Ranger School together in October of 1950. And then once they graduated in December of 1950, the Desegregation Act had already been passed, but it hadn't trickled down to the Army yet. And so the Black Rangers were put in an all Black Ranger unit, 2nd Ranger Battalion, and then the all white Rangers were put in another Ranger unit. And then they all went to career, and they were getting after it. Like both units were getting after it, fighting behind enemy lines, grew out beards, customized their clothes and weapons. They did the jump into Musam, and I want to say that was May of 1951. And it was just gnarly. And then the Black Ranger unit got disbanded in August of 1951. But that was the only period in American history from the end of December of 1950 to August 1951 where we had an all Black special operations capable unit. And so I wrote that. I came across that story. I tried to get the rights to the book because there's a book out called All Black Rangers, but it didn't work out. So I figured, let me just kind of create fictional characters, but keep the same kind of story and all the stuff that went on around it. And so I wrote that screenplay, and then those 2 screenplays are what got me an agent, and then at APA, and then those 2 screenplays got me my first writing job that got me into the WGA, which is the Writers Guild of America. I was hired to adapt a book called Slave Stealers into a limited series. And so that's what kind of got me into the professional writing thing. And that was after the book. I think the book had already came out at that point, transformed. And just kept on writing. And then the Chameleon got picked up by a major producer I can't announce yet. That was about 2 years ago. I went through about 8 months of rewrites. And then we attached a star last May. And then HarperCollins got a hold of the book, this Chameleon screenplay, read it, and was just like, this would be an awesome book series. And of course, every time I met with my agent, John, everybody's Jack Carr. Like this is going to be like another cool journalist, Jack Carr. So I hear your name all the time with my publisher, with my agent, John, my publishing agent.
Oh, nice.
Everything, my publisher is like, Jack Carr is amazing. He's like, there's nobody that does social media like Jack Carr when it comes to posts. Oh, man, he's right there. But you got to be my agent. He loves you, man.
What's his last name?
John Talbot.
John Talbot. Yeah. I was going to ask him if it's John Talbot. That's awesome, man. John, what's up? How's it going? If he's listening. Yeah. Very cool. So, he's great. He's fantastic. You got a great agent.
He's an awesome dude. So that book, I turned it into the publisher 4 weeks ago, got an email 2 days ago from her. And listen, she's like, the book is amazing. I don't have any notes just yet. I'm paraphrasing. And then she was just like, I'm going to read it again. Nice. She's like, making everything. So she loves it. So,
that's great. Congratulations. That's awesome.
So we're going to get it out next year, probably after around the time that the US version of the SAS.
Nice. And when is that one coming? How did that evolve then? Did they, and where was that? Did you Australia or where did you guys do that? Yours or Jordan or something?
That story. Yeah, we shot the last season in Jordan, and that was they reached out to me like 2 or 3 years ago, and I went through the whole interview process and then never heard anything. And then fast forward to last year, right after I finished working with you guys on Terminal. Maybe no, I was working on Terminalist with you guys during that time because it was like between June and July. They reached back out and were like, "Hey, we want to kind of bring you on to the project." And then we went through an interview process again, and then got the job. And then after I finished Terminalist, I flew to Puerto Rico to shoot The Plane with Gerard Butler. That comes out this January.
Oh, nice.
And did that for 2 months out there, and then flew from Puerto Rico to Saudi Arabia, did a writers conference there, and then flew from Saudi Arabia to Jordan.
A writers conference in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, man. The prince, the crown prince is he's really kind of modernizing Saudi Arabia, and so he's putting on these big conferences and festivals and stuff to kind of show in some way that Saudi Arabia is changing a little bit. And he started this writer/book conference. And it was massive, brother. It was like the size of Coronado, this big building that they made. It's like a 1-story building that they made just for this conference. Whoa. And there's writers and books from all over the world. It was super, super cool. And I spoke on a panel there. Well, no, I was interviewed there at the conference. And then I went and shot that show. And it was a great experience.
Man, you're like gone for like 6 months.
Yeah, I was going. Yeah, my wife was in the Hurt Locker, brother. Yeah, she was in the Hurt Locker, man. A lot of crazy.
It's like a deployment.
While we were gone. Yeah, it was like a deployment. Yeah, a house flooded, car broke down, everything. Kids were acting up, so it was a rough one. It was her mini buds.
Man, that is wild. And so, what point on this? So, how long did it take to film the SAS show? Are you guys there for like a month or 2 months or what is?
Yeah, we filmed 2 seasons. So we were there. I got there like the first week of October. I want to say like October 6th. And then we wrapped and I was on a plane November 10th.
Okay. So you pack it in there.
Yeah, we shot 2 seasons. So we shot like the civilian season and then the celebrity season. The celebrity season is currently airing on Channel 4 in the UK.
Okay.
So we shot that one, and then left Jordan, and then fast forward to April, they reached out to me and said, "Hey, Fox picked up the U.S. version of the show."
Nice.
And they had been trying to get Fox, a U.S. network, to pick it up for a while, but Fox picked it up, and then they were all ecstatic. And,
nice.
And we went out there and shot the celebrity. Fox is just doing the celebrity, whereas in the UK they do a civilian season. And the celebrity, Fox is just like, no, we just want to do a celebrity season. So that was bro.
It's no joke, right? Like I've had some of those guys on the podcast before, and it's no joke what people are going through.
Bro, Squid Games, man.
Yeah. I saw that in your post. On your post. You're like the real Squid Games.
I'm not joking. I can't talk about what happens in the Fox version. I can tell you that them dudes got after it.
Yeah.
The celebrities, there was no hold. I mean, I can't say anything.
Yeah,
What I want to say is that the UK version is brutal too, and because it's cursing, like literally do like people almost freaking breaking bones. Like
it looks crazy.
It's nuts. And it's a point where when I did the first season, I was like, yo, can we do this?
Are we allowed?
Like, is this like,
is it legal?
Somebody, like getting seriously hurt or get killed? Like, and it was like, yep, dude, this season, we've been doing this for a long time. I was like, all right. And then when we got to the Fox version, I was just like, oh, they definitely going to tone it down, especially with these celebrities. Not at all, bro.
Wow.
And when people watch this show, they're gonna do the concept in the show in the UK is like one of the biggest shows in the UK.
Yeah.
This show in the US is going to be massive. Nice. And it's not, and I'm not just saying that because they follow the same template. I'm saying that because this is going to be the first show where celebrities were put through some crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, tears, and people were like literally not because they were whining, but emotional tears. I mean, you're going to see some stuff that's never been seen before.
Yeah.
And the cool thing that I love about the show is, unlike other shows, is, other shows, it's like, oh, you get to the end, you get a prize, or, and all of this other, superficial stuff. But it's not like that. But it's almost like an experience for them. It's almost like therapy for them. And we have these things called mirror rooms, which you'll see in the UK, which is like an interrogation, but it's literally like a therapy session where they open up about like their deepest, darkest secrets that they've never told anybody. And that's how it was in the UK series. And I remember going to the Fox, and I was like, there's no way these people are going to open up like that. In America, I think the UK is different from America. They're not going to do that. Bro, it's heavy, man. Like, there's some heavy stuff, man. There's some heavy stuff that people going to hear when they watch the show. They're going to, and what I love about the show, when I signed on, is because it's a way to help people. Going back to what we talked about with storytelling before, writing a book, a TV show, that has the potential to save lives and change lives. And the viewers are going to be able to see themselves in these celebrities. And I didn't think that was possible, because in the civilian series in the UK, it's easy. There's a girl in last season, her dad committed suicide, hung himself. She had to cut him down. This other girl, she was raped by her brother repeatedly from the time of 3 years old. Another person, like his mom was at the I can't pronounce, Grande, the singer, Ariana Grande concert, when a terrorist attack happened. His mom got killed, right? And then there's all these other stories in there that are very, very like powerful stories. And we in the mirror room, through this interrogation, we're pulling these stories out, but then we're also able to help talk them through that. Wow. And then help bring some form of healing. Like, we're not going to solve their problem completely, but we're able to help give them the steps. And then when we get out into the battlefield or into these practical applications, then we're able to kind of drive those points home further. And in my mind, I was like, I didn't see how we were going to be able to do that with a celebrity, because these are millionaires. These are freaking like famous people. But you come to realize that they're people. Put the whole famous stuff aside. They're still human beings. And they're still human beings with real problems, just like we all have real problems, with real situations, going through divorce, having stuff with, with their kids and all these different things. And the audience in the US, they're gonna connect with that, especially in the time we're in right now. And the show is powerful, man. And I'm not trying to sell a show, because like
no, it's around the world. It's a huge hit. Yeah,
I already got paid. It's already made. I'm not trying to sell a show. I'm just saying that it's heavy.
Yeah. No, there's a reason that people are connecting with it all around the world. And, I was always wondering why it's taken so long to get here. But I'm looking forward to watching that. And that's coming out January. Is that right?
Yeah, January 2023. Yep.
Nice. That's coming out January. Book coming out around the same time. Chameleon. That'll be awesome. Yeah. Can't wait to read that. I'm going to go order it right now. If I can pre-order, if it's up there, I'm going to go order it right now.
I think we're going to do pre-order. We're going to open up pre-orders in about 2 months. But I'm going to hit you up for an endorsement, bro.
I will. Absolutely. That'd be my pleasure. Yeah, no, it'd be my honor. I can't wait to order that thing up and support the cause. Man, that is so wild. And then at some point, when do you make this movie?
Yeah, so, man.
You got a lot going on here.
Yeah, so I got back. I was in DR, as I said, and I saw some crazy, horrible stuff. Well, you are. Came back, I was like, man, I got to do something, because it's not enough to just rescue a kid or provide resources to a woman who's just been rescued out of enslavement, like literally enslavement. What else can I do? And filmmaking came to mind. And in my mind, I was just like, if I can tell a story that can galvanize the masses, that can inspire people to get into this fight, or not just get in the fight, to be aware of the signs of a traffic victim. There's a story that came out a couple months ago of a Delta Airlines pilot who she saw this little girl with a man, and the girl was just, something seemed off.
Didn't look right. Yep.
Yeah, it's just something about this. This can't be her dad. Something they weren't like of different races. She was just like this. And she reported, come to find out that girl was trafficked. She was trafficked, and the trafficker was moving her out of the state to a different place to do who knows what. Okay. But she was she saved that girl's life by being aware of the signs. And so in my mind, I was just like, I got to make more people aware at a minimum of the signs of a traffic victim, be aware that this stuff happens right under our nose. Human trafficking is on track to surpass the drug trade. It's a $32 billion a year industry right now. You know what I mean? It's organ harvesting. There's no real way to find the true statistics behind it, but organ harvesting is estimated to be a $1 billion black market enterprise. I would say that it's a lot higher. I don't trust that statistic because human trafficking right now is estimated at $32 billion industry, and it's about to surpass the drug trade. And so as I'm getting all of this information and working with OUR, working with other human trafficking organizations and learning and seeing these things, I'm just like, I got to tell a story. So after I finished on 6 Underground, I wrote a treatment called The Unexpected for a TV series. And essentially it followed these 2 girls based on true events about these 2 Yazidis girls who were essentially trafficked by ISIS, which a lot of people don't know that has happened. Like after we pulled out in 2016, about 2015, 2016, after we really started our drawdown, ISIS started to move into the north of Iraq, and they raided a lot of Yazidis villages. So many stories that's out there in open source. This is not something that's like not just hidden. And the men were killed, the girls were taken. The boys, depending on their age, were either taken or killed. And the boys who were taken were groomed to be suicide bombers or they were used for sex or organs and so on and so forth. The girls were used for sex and in some cases used for organs as well. That's how ISIS, was able to keep funding their terror campaign because, again, not being able to go into all the details around what happens out in the internet space of different government agencies, but their financing lines were cut to a certain extent around that time. So they had to find different ways to finance their operations. So when I came across this story, there was this one girl in particular named Nadia, and who survived. She was able to escape. She was enslaved by ISIS for a number of years, raped multiple times, sold to different people multiple times. I think she's spoken at the UN as well. And as I came across the story, I was like, how come people don't know about this? So fast forward, I wrote the treatment, named one of the main characters, Nadia, based after the actual girl who was trafficked by ISIS. And my agent took it around town. And we got the same note from all these different studios and execs and producers and so on and so forth. Great material, great storyline, too dark. It's too dark. And this is during COVID. So, the other thing was nobody wants to come home after dealing with COVID and all of this stuff going on and then have to watch something like that, which is understandable. But the thing is, we watch these freaking horror movies of people getting chopped up, and people watch all kinds of other crazy stuff all the time. And so I think it's an excuse in my opinion, but fast forward, I told my agent, I was like, dude, I gotta get this made. And so I said, screw it. Fast forward to last year, I'm gonna put up the money. So I got a few investors, and I put up about $150,000 of money. And I told my producing partner, I was like, we're just gonna go ahead and make this. We're gonna go ahead and make this film. I'm gonna write a short film, and we're gonna find a place to shoot it in, and we're gonna go shoot this film. And the crazy thing is, everything fell into place. I decided, I think it was the first week of May. I was like, we're gonna do this. No offense, Frogman style. No offense to us. I don't care what happens. We're gonna shoot this film within the next 30 days.
Oh wow!
The last week of May, we were in principal photography.
Nice.
My producing partners were giving me hell. They're like, Remi, this can't be done. Dude, we found a private jet that I had to pay for. Jesse Itzler, shout out to Jesse Itzler. Like I said, I put a post out there. I need a private jet. A bunch of different people responded. I think I got one. Jesse Itzler was like, hey, I used to own a private jet company. Reach out to this dude. I reached out to this New Yorker cat. This is hardcore New York. He's like, yo, man, what's up, man, from New York? He's like, I'm gonna hook you up. Found me a private jet. I had to pay $21,000 for 14 hours. but it was worth it. And I remember my producing partners were like, dude, let's just get a cheap jet. I had one guy who wanted to give me a private jet for free that was small. I was like, no, but that's not going to be authentic, because there's no way that small private jet is going to be able to get from that part of the world to this part of the world. And I really wanted to make it authentic. Like everything that happened in that film that you saw happened. I'm not exaggerating everything. I'm just changing locations and events and names of people to hide the identities. But that whole type of campaign that is so intricate happened. And so got the private jet, threw the money in the bank, the money that I had, got a few $1,000s from some other people. Just hit up Justin Garza. I was like, dude, I need you to play this guy. Hit up Gonzo. He's like, oh man. Got some people from the acting school that I went to a few years earlier, and a buddy of mine, Khalid, who I served in the Navy with. He lives in Kansas. He had been trying to get me to shoot something in Kansas for a long time. He's like, dude, Bay, these people, tell them to let's bring films to Kansas, because he's worked with the Kansas Film Commission to bring a tax credit to Kansas. And he was like, dude, you could do this for little to nothing. And he was absolutely right. This film, if I filmed it in LA or any other place, would have cost me $1 million to make, right? I was able to get everything dirt cheap or at some points free. And so got out to Kansas, got the cast, everything in place, got my cast trained, because none of my, Justin doesn't speak Spanish, which I didn't know.
Did an amazing job with all that.
Yeah,
that was...
He learned Spanish. Yep. He didn't speak the other language. I won't give away the other language. He learned that language. The two girls.
It sounded legit.
Exactly. And we had Jassim Hamadi, who he was from Iraq. He was an interpreter in Iraq for the SEAL teams. And he trained everybody. He trained the two sisters.
Yeah, the screams, by the way, getting on the plane, the screams.
Yeah.
Pretty powerful. That was crazy. Yeah.
All the credit goes to the actors, man. They crushed it, man. And they learned the language, they did the training, and then we got out there and shot it, brother. Like, it was just like set up a shot, get it down. And I give a lot of credit to films that I've watched, filmmakers that I've watched, Antoine Fuqua and stuff that he's done, and a lot of other directors, like I said, Christopher Nolan, Denis Villeneuve. Sicario was my inspiration for the film, for the short film. But then also like being on set with Michael Bay and being on set with all these, with Jakob Verbruggen for Invasion and all these other different directors, and being able to sit with them and learn, that's what helped me be able to shoot that. And we shot it in 4 days, you know what I mean?
Wow.
And
that's aggressive. Yeah.
It was nuts. But my crew stuck it out, and we got the product that we got. And, that was the goal. That had been the goal, was to be able to get I didn't want something cheesy or looking low budget or anything like that. I wanted something that could tell this story and relay the message to the people. And so, we wrapped that and got it through post-production October of last year. And then we started our festival circuit run, and that's starting to wind up. And now we're coming up to the release, which is going to be September 30th. And hoping that it gets out there and changes lives. And then we also, I'm sure I'll share this with you. I can share, because I'm assuming that by the time this plays, like, it'll already be announced. But Alan Siegel and G-Base, Gerard Butler's production company, and Alan Siegel signed on to produce the feature film, which that script is already written.
Based on this, or? Yeah,
it picks up 5 years after the events of the short film. So we're following that story, but this is going to be more of I couldn't afford to do action in the short film, because action is expensive, but it's going to be an action thriller in the same vein of Sicario. I think Sicario meets Logan. Nice. And the story is going to follow. We won't give away too much, but the story is going to follow someone that's going to help essentially burn down this organ harvesting ring.
Nice.
And so, but it's also going to educate people on the reality of organ harvesting. So it's going to be done in an entertaining way. So we just Alan Siegel and G-Base and Gerard Butler just signed on to produce that, and then we're in negotiations now with Tenderfoot TV. They want to do it on a scripted narrative podcast series called The Unexpected, which is going to be like actors and all that stuff, which is stretch out the story. So when I made this film, I didn't make this film to be able to do a feature. I didn't make this film to be able to do the podcast, I made this film to educate the audience, to let people know that, it's a $32 billion industry, 30,000 victims of just sex trafficking, not organ harvesting, not testing, not labor, but 30,000 victims of just sex trafficking die every year in captivity. Every year, every 365 freaking women and children account for the 600 to 800,000 globally trafficked victims. Organ harvesting is a real thing all over the world. There's stories out of India. There's stories out of the capital of organ harvesting is Egypt, which a lot of people don't know. A major hub for human trafficking in and of itself is San Diego and Houston and Miami. When it comes to the United States, we're the biggest consumer of materials that have been created by trafficked victims as it relates to pornography. Right now on the border, there's a crisis, and a lot of people don't realize that crisis is specifically tied to human trafficking. I interviewed a guy who's connected to one of the guys who worked on the film, who was trafficked from Venezuela to Colombia to Mexico and finally escaped. He was the only guy, he was one of two people who survived this trafficking situation, escaped into the United States. I just interviewed him 2 days ago. And he told me how the cartel and gangs and traffickers created these fake travel agencies and these fake travel agency pamphlets and ads, digital ads. And he said, and that's how he found out and how he ended up getting to Mexico. And they sent those ads to coyotes all across South America and other places in the world. And so that's how, so he got the ad. He went from Venezuela because he wanted to come to the United States, because the ad essentially says, America wants you. America says that you can come in. So come, we can facilitate your way in. And so he went from Venezuela to Colombia, jumped from Colombia to Mexico. As soon as he got to Mexico, this travel agency gave him a short-term job on the border. Then one day, a car pulled up. He was ordered to get in a car. He got in the car, got drove to another location. Got out of the car, got thrown in the trunk. There were 3 females already in the truck who had their face duct taped. He was moved to a mansion in Mexico. He stayed in that mansion for months. There were about 100 other men, women, and children in this specific mansion. All of them received the same ad. All of them were lured in some way, funneled in some way to this specific location through this travel agency. I say this in air quotes. The kids were used to move drugs into the United States. Okay, there's been many, many stories of this where, there's a lot of stories of this here in San Diego with children, babies who have been cut open, their organs have been taken out, they've been stuck with drugs, swaddled, like babies are swaddled, eyes closed, and they're moved into the United States, and that's how the drugs have come in. Multiple stories of that. I've known about this for years. Some of the kids were used in that way from that house. Other kids, as it relates to drugs, because they're not as expected to have drugs, were pretty much used to go through tunnels or go through the border with drugs to get into the United States. Those kids were never found again. The women were used for sex trafficking, and the men were used for labor and a combination of funds. So they had their family members in the United States had to send $9,000 to this specific group, this nefarious group. Once the $9,000 was sent, there was no use for the men anymore after labor, so they were killed. He's one of 2 people who survived that incident. There were 3 of them that were about to survive, but it was this female. She ended up getting executed in front of them, stripped naked and executed because she was talking too much. I asked him, I said, what message do you have to send to America? And he was like, it's real. He was like, because of the disorder at the border and the lack of laws on the border, you as Americans have created an environment for people to get enslaved. And when he said that, like my mind, like it was just like my mind blew up, because I was just like, the crazy thing is, we know slavery has been around since the beginning of time. You know what I mean? It's nothing new. But here in America, when we hear slavery, we automatically think of the 1800s. And slavery did take place here in the United States in the 1800s. And we did facilitate, the last real massive array of human trafficking. But we are still contributing to that now what's going on in the border. And he said there were people from Kurdistan, Africa, freaking different parts of Asia who all came to South America and were moved up into Mexico and were trafficked. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's so many other stories and so many other things that I've come across and I've seen working with these different human trafficking organizations and doing research for the film and stuff. And at the end of the day, that's why I made the film. Because, when people think of human trafficking, they just think of sex trafficking. They forget these other subsets, such as organ harvesting, which is a real thing. It's not some cartoon horror movie thing. It's a real deal thing. Egypt is the capital of the organ harvesting trade. And like I said, in India, there was a woman, a story came out, and people could Google all of this stuff. All they got to do is type in organ harvesting, and a lot of these cases will pop up. There's a story recently of a woman in India who was, she was in this impoverished side of town, and she received a message, hey, there's a job opportunity for you in New Delhi. She went to New Delhi, was put up in an apartment. Her boss told her, and I say this in air quotes, and I'm not sure if people are going to be able to hear, so I got to say what I say. Her boss told her, hey, I need you to go get a medical checkup. She goes to go get a medical checkup, as she was told, because she couldn't start working until she got this medical checkup, strips naked and waiting for the doctor to come in. While she's waiting, her astuteness and her attentiveness saved her life. While she was waiting, she overheard one of the nurses, the nurse say to the doctor, yes, this one, she's the one that's going to be giving organs today. Got dressed, pretty much fled, got the hell out of there, alerted the authorities. They were able to uncover a multi-million-dollar organ harvesting ring that had been going on for years. I mean, Pakistan, it's happening. Freaking, it's all over South America, it's happening. And, there's an organ shortage for those who are in need. And that's going to always be the case as long as we have human beings until the end of time. There's going to always be people who need organs.
And they need healthy organs, which essentially means younger people.
Exactly. And there's going to always not be enough. And, there are people who are going to desperate measures. And I'll say this last thing, because I know I'm going on a tangent here, but there's another piece to this where there are people who are willingly seeking out traffickers to sell their organs. And that's out of desperation. A lot of migrants do this in India, in Egypt, also in South America. And they're willingly doing this for an opportunity because they're desperate. And I wouldn't understand this if I didn't do this trip with OUR to Dominican Republic. This would be the last story I share. When we were there, I went into this chapel. I think I touched on it a little bit, but I'll go further with this. And we're in this slum that was horrible area. This guy brings me into this chapel. At the end of this chapel, there's this baby, couldn't be more than 6 months old, who was dead in a casket, 6 months old. The guy explained to me that the reason why the baby died is because the mother, she wasn't getting enough sustenance, so her milk dried up. So she bought formula. She mixed the formula with water. The water is not, you can't drink the water. The water is killing adults. Gave the baby the milk, gave the baby the formula with the bad water to kill the baby. The reason why he showed me this was because he wasn't trying to justify why parents do what I'm about to tell you they do, but he was just trying to paint a picture as to why they're doing what they're doing. So then he goes on to tell me that because we were in this particular slum, because this slum was known for the parents selling their children to traffickers in the north of DR to be sex trafficked. Europeans, Americans go to the north of DR, where the tourist area, and they have sex with the girls and the boys and the kids. And this is all known, it's all documented. This is not something that's like some QAnon hidden crazy thing. This is all like actual facts that people can uncover. There's documented cases and all of this stuff. And so the parents were selling their kids to be trafficked for sex in the north of DR. And he explained to me that the reason why they're doing that is because in their minds, they're saving their other kids' lives and their lives by giving up the kids to be sex trafficked. Now, to us and myself, I got 4 kids. I can't comprehend that. But when you see the poverty that they're in, you can kind of, I don't want to be very light and minute, but you can kind of get a glimpse, but you still can't really understand that. And that's what's happening with organ harvesting. You get these people that are so desperate. And to us, it's like, you talk to some of these people, they don't understand how we can, call out our politicians and the president and all that stuff, call them names, because to them, they're like, dude, you do that over here, you get your head chopped off.
Right.
So they can't understand the concept of freedom of speech, right? And so, you get these people who are in these utter desperate situations. And so some of them willingly will sell their organs, sell their kids for sex, sell their kids for labor because they're desperate. And that was one thing I just wanted to hit on, because I don't want people to think that every single case is a case where, a girl gets tricked to go to this place, or a girl gets snatched and gets an organ. There are different facets to this. There's different levels to this. And it's going to just keep growing, especially given the global recession that we're about to go in. And these guys are so sophisticated. I mean, they're employing computer science engineers. They're using apps. They're using social media. I mean, during the lockdown alone, recruitment online went up 25%. I mean, recruitment on Instagram alone, just Instagram, went up 95%, 25% increase on recruitment on Facebook. And there's so many stories of kids being lured through social media, being trafficked for sex, drugs, and organs.
It's so crazy. Like, if I put a video up and there's music playing in the background and I just put it up, all of a sudden I'm flagged and I get this warning that says you're using music, even if it's just in the background. It's don't even mean to. And it's like, they're on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we could focus some of that energy elsewhere.
Exactly. I agree 1,000%.
Oh,
make sure hug your kids.
Yeah. Yeah. God, how do those ones that you were talking about that are stuff with drugs, baby stuff with drugs, bring them across the border, that sort of a thing. I mean, do these people just euthanize them with some sort of a drug, like a little kid, because you're not putting a bullet in the head because he has to look like it's still alive. They're coming across the border. Do they shoot is that what they do? They euthanize them?
I'm not 100% sure, because I read into it. I just know about the aftermath of it. So I'm not sure if they're killing the kids. I would assume that, there's a point where the kid is getting cut open, but I'm not 100. The worst part of it is it happens.
Ugh.
It happens. I did a ride along with a Border Patrol agent about 3 years ago that helped me understand the border crisis and everything that's going on with human trafficking. And, obviously I can't mention his name, but he showed me pictures. He showed me pictures of kids that were dead that had been stuffed with drugs and stitched up. And I didn't see any bullet wounds in the head, but I did see kid was cut all the way down the middle and stuffed full of drugs. So it's a very gross, and we're dealing with evil people. We're dealing with evil people. And that's why I went back to, it's one thing to kick down a door and rescue a kid and put a bullet in a trafficker's head. You can only do that but so many times. And these people are so intricate. And that's why I wanted to make the film the way I made it, to show the intricacies of these type of operations. The best way to combat this thing is psychologically. PsyOps is by educating the masses and showing them every week. This is an all hands on deck situation. Yeah. And, I wish the media would talk about this a little bit more. I wish that they would give as much attention to this as they do what's going on between Kanye West and Kim Kardashian.
Yeah.
But the reality is somebody has to do it.
Yeah.
Somebody has to do it.
Oh, yeah. And, man, and the film, I don't want to give too much away either, but the way that these parents, they don't really understand exactly what they've just done by taking the actions they've taken that are a couple steps removed via financing the terrorism aspect and all that stuff. But I guess I'll just leave it at that, because I want people to go and watch this. As you said, you wanted to make this to educate, and I hope everybody goes to watch it. September 30th, it's out there. Where can they find it? Where do you go to get this kind of?
Just drop it on YouTube. So I'm gonna keep it simple. Drop it on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Remi Adeleke. And that way I had an opportunity to put it on like a subscribe type network where people can pay to watch it. But I was just like, no, I just want people to watch it. So drop it on YouTube September 30th, and it's going to be available for everybody to see. hopefully everybody will watch and get into the fight in some way.
Man. Oh, well, amazing job. You got so much going on. I'm fired up for the book Chameleon. When that comes out, I can't wait to read it. And this, you have this in the film here. Closing our eyes to the darkness in this world doesn't extinguish it, but only deepens it.
Yep.
I wrote that down too. That's
thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right there at the beginning of the film right there. And then what is it? ExodusCry.com. Is that a place you send people for more information?
Yeah, so I said, Exodus Cry is a place that people can go if they want to donate or if they want to learn more about human trafficking. Exodus Cry focuses more on the sex trafficking side. Tried to find different partners to partner with, but they were the ones that I landed on. But yeah, that's the first group that they can go to if they want to learn more and dip their toe into the sex trafficking side of things. They've done a great job in battling Pornhub, which a lot of traffic victims end up on Pornhub, and some of these other apps that people utilize. So they've done a great job. So I just want to partner with somebody that's actually doing work, because the interesting thing is there are a lot of human trafficking organizations out there that are, in my opinion, just collecting a check, not really doing a job. You know what I mean? And they're portraying that they're doing something, but the reality is they're not. And that's another reason why I wanted to release this film on YouTube for free, because I wanted to show people that I'm not here to make a buck. You know what I mean? I'm here to get the word out there. So, Exodus Cry is really making a difference out there. So that's where you can start, and people can do their research and find other trafficking organizations that they can donate to and give to if they want to go to OUR. That's one. There's a bunch of other ones as well.
Man, incredible. Well, you've got a ton going on, and so I appreciate you taking this time. I've wanted to do this for a long time. Like, I've had this book since it came out. Like, I didn't just buy this for the podcast. I've had this for the longest time. Yeah. So I've had it forever. And the film coming out was a great excuse to get together and get to hang out for a little bit. And man, thanks for doing the terminal list, and looking forward to SAS. But it's going to be called something different in the U.S., right? Isn't it called?
Yeah, I think they posted the name of it because they went back and forth over a name for a long period of time, and they finally kind of landed on Special Forces: The Ultimate Test.
Got it. Okay.
So that's what the Special Forces: The Ultimate Test. So yeah, look out for that in January. But man, I want to give you your flowers too, man, because man, much respect to you. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of Terminal List. Amazing show. Thank you for leading from the front, as a storyteller and a frogman, doing everything with excellence, man. You're somebody that I look up to as it relates to this world as it relates to everything, being a frogman in the entertainment business, being a frogman as a writer, just being a straight up good, humble, great dude. So, I just want to give you your due respect and just say thank you. And thank you for all you're doing. You're awesome.
Oh man, I appreciate that. And yeah, hopefully we can link up here in person soon. And I'm going to stay on you about the book, because I want to check that thing out and tell John Talbot I said hi. And man, I will. Hopefully we work on another project together one of these days. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be awesome.
Absolutely. Get something going, man. Bring HRT back.
Bring him back.
Yeah. I'll have to jump in and jump back.
So that's right. That's so great. Awesome, man. Cool. Well, hey, I appreciate this. And best wishes, everything you have going on. And hopefully I'll see you again soon. Most
definitely will. I appreciate you too, man. God bless and much love.
Take care.
All right, brother.
A special thanks to our presenting sponsor, Navy Federal Credit Union. I've been a member since 1996. That is my first year in the military. And right now, when you become a member of Navy Federal Credit Union, life gets better. That's why they created a fully loaded car buying experience. I've bought cars and motorcycles using it in the past. You can finance, buy, protect, and enjoy your auto purchase all from one convenient place. They have pre-approval that's good for 90 days, so you know what you can afford while you shop. They also offer great auto loan rates. You can shop for new and used cars with Navy Federal's car buying service powered by TrueCar. You can also get exclusive member savings with Carfax, SiriusXM, and more. They're always available with 24/7 member service representatives to answer any questions. Learn more at NavyFederal.org/car buying. Credit and collateral subject to approval. Navy Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA. Check them out, NavyFederal.org. I want to thank my friends at Black Rifle Coffee for sponsoring the Danger Close podcast. I've been a huge fan for the longest time. Drink Black Rifle Coffee every day. And if you keep your eyes peeled, you will notice that perhaps Chris Pratt is wearing a Black Rifle Coffee t-shirt, not unsimilar to this one, in the Amazon series adaptation of The Terminal List. Now you can go to blackriflecoffee.com/dangerclose and use code DangerClose20 at checkout for 20% off your purchase and your first coffee club order. Black Rifle Coffee, America's coffee. Keep crushing. Today's gear segment is sponsored by Zero Foxtrot. Zero Foxtrot provides unique products that reflect the old school vintage military lifestyle. I've actually been following these guys for a while. Love what they're doing. Have a bunch of other shirts and coffee mugs downstairs from the last few years. Just love it when guys get out and absolutely crush it. Zero Foxtrot is veteran founded and is a proud supporter of our nation's defenders, veterans, and first responders. I'm actually wearing this shirt. Look at that. Canoe Club USA. What does that mean? I think you're going to have to look it up in your web browser, the Google machine. Canoe Club USA. Awesome shirts out there. They have limited edition ones that drop every now and again that are super cool. So definitely go to zerofoxtrot.com. And right now, we have an exclusive code for listeners of Danger Close. Use code JC at checkout for 20% off your order. Very cool. Remember, you can gear up with Zero Foxtrot and use code JC at checkout for 20% off your order. Just go to zerofoxtrot.com/JC and remember to use code JC for 20% off at checkout, or just click the link in the description. Once again, that offer code is JC. Gear up with Zero Foxtrot and use code JC for 20% off. Awesome. Definitely do that and check out all they have going on. Follow them on the social channels. They have some great things out there. They do some history posts every now and again that are really cool and very well thought out. Definitely check out zerofoxtrot.com for all the stuff. They have Zippo lighters in there. They have these mugs right here. What does that say? Drink coffee, stack bodies, stay zero. Love this. And then this one right here, this is cool. This might be a limited edition one. I'm not sure. But for St. Patrick's Day, lack fear, not beer. Look at that. Boom. Love it. Awesome. So that's what they look like right there. Zero Foxtrot. And you get a little of that action right there. That's a sticker. But check out their t-shirts, mugs right here. Whiskey glasses. These are some of my favorites right there. Look at that. Oh, yeah. Solid. So check them out for sure. zerofoxtrot.com/JC for 20% off. Welcome to the gear highlight portion of the Danger Close podcast. Now, this pistol is one that I've been looking forward to for quite some time. It is the SIG P365X Macro, and this thing has a 17-round magazine. Yes, you heard me right. 17 rounds in a P365. Awesome. They sent this one with a red dot optic and with a light. But this thing is awesome. I shot it for the first time yesterday, and I think this is going to become my daily carry. I absolutely love it, and I would not be surprised if it makes its way into a future novel. All right, what else do I have here? Rugged, RHUGED.com. My buddy Chris Osmond from the SEAL teams sent me a nice little care package here. So Chris, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Once again, Rugged right here, Rugged, and it RHUGED. And look at these ones right here. Freedom Seeds. Oh yeah, very cool. And you can go to that website. I'm not sure if you can link to their social channels or not, because Chris is always getting kicked off of social channels, it seems. And if you know him, that shouldn't be a surprise. But check out rugged.com. Chris, thank you so much, my friend. Sincerely appreciated. What else do I have here? Solomon shoes. Oh, yeah. If you've been following me for a while, you know I love these. And got a little retro color action going on here. So Eric Anderson over there at Solomon, thank you so much for sending these along. And if I finish this next book, we might even hit the mountain this winter. We'll see. And, right here, Black Point Tactical. I love Black Point Tactical. This is the mini wing right here. And one of the things I love about them is that they put what it's for on the holster. So if you have more than one, you can quickly find the one that you're looking for. So right here, Black Point Tactical, check them out. Great crew over there. And, oh yeah, Montana Knife Company. Josh Smith over there, Montana Knife Company, doing great work. And this is a collab that they did with Fieldcraft Survival, with Mike Glover and the crew over there at Fieldcraft Survival. And if you're interested in Montana Knife Company stuff, you got to go to their website. You got to sign up for their newsletter to find out when these drops are coming, because they go quick. And this one, I think, went out in less than a minute, I want to say. And this right here, this is their everyday carry blade. Once again, Montana Knife Company and Fieldcraft Survival right here. This thing feels great. So thank you guys for sending. Sincerely appreciated. Take care out there. Thank you for tuning in to the Danger Close podcast, an Ironclad original presented by Navy Federal Credit Union. To find out more about Remi Adeleke and everything he has going on, follow him on the social channels and on Twitter and Instagram. He is Remi Adeleke, and it is RemiAdeleke. Also, be sure to go and check out the film The Unexpected on his YouTube channel. And then in January, SAS Who Dares Wins, which is being called Special Forces, The Ultimate Test for U.S. audiences. That'll be on Fox. Amazing. You can follow me at Jack Carr USA on the social channels, officialjackcarr.com. That is the website. You can sign up for the newsletter there and also click on shop for the merchandise. And if you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe as well. Until the next time, take care out there. Stay safe. Be strong. Keep fighting.